IndyCar World Series is brought to you on Eurosport by Husqvarna, Forest and Garden, Bridgestone, the science of performance, and Valvoline Motor Oil.
Two weeks ago at the new oval in Homestead in Florida, Jimmy Vasser scored his first IndyCar victory in the opening race of the season. His Chip Ganassi Reynard runs a Honda engine and Firestone tyres. Gilles de Ferran, the 1995 IndyCar Rookie of the Year. He drove a great race in Homestead to make it a Reynard Honda 1-2, only losing the lead through inexperience at the final restart, when Vasser overtook him in traffic. In the closest finish possible, Robbie Gordon just beat Scott Pruitt to the line in a photo finish for third place. The finish was certainly exciting, and so was the start, but for different reasons. Low track temperatures meant that drivers had trouble warming the tyres. And ex-Formula One drivers Mark Blundell and Roberto Moreno both spun as the field came off a final pace car lap. Blundell restarted, but Moreno's car was too badly damaged. Former champion Michael Andretti was soon in trouble too. As the yellow flag period finished, he ran into the back of Mauricio Gugelmin on the fifth lap, breaking his front wing, and then he had to spend the whole race trying to make up for lost time. The star of qualifying, Canadian Paul Tracy, comfortably led the early stages in the Penske Mercedes. But his first race for his former team, after a sabbatical at Newman Haas, ended with transmission failure after a routine pit stop. Teammate and former champion Al Unser Jr. lost his nose in a collision in traffic after qualifying poorly, but he fought back strongly, opening his season's scorecard with an 8th place finish. Canadian IndyCar fans who may be disappointed by reigning champion Jacques Villeneuve's move to Formula One can still look forward to a good season. Not only do they have front-runner Paul Tracy at Penske, but there's also the super-fast rookie Greg Moore. Moore was simply sensational in Florida. The 20-year-old clearly the fastest man on the racecourse for most of the afternoon. If he had not suffered a stop-go penalty, he might well have won his debut IndyCar race. To Rio de Janeiro. Hello, this is James Allen saying welcome to the Rio 400, the first time that the IndyCars have ever raced in Brazil. The race only just started, one lap old. The event will be held over 133 laps of this 1.868 mile circuit, which will add up to 247 miles or 400 kilometers. We'll talk a little bit about the circuit later. It's a most unusual D-shaped oval, but must let you know that the pole man was Alex Zanardi, absolutely sensational in qualifying, fastest on Friday and Saturday, and he was the first driver to dip below 39 seconds. His qualifying lap on Saturday, 40.162 seconds, an average of 167 miles an hour. A brilliant effort from a man raised on European street circuits. Furious action at Rio de Janeiro. And that is Ribeiro, Scott Pruitt well up, Bobby Rahal to run you down the grid as they started. Alex Zanardi on pole, Jimmy Vasser, his Ganassi teammate on the outside of row one. Then it was Ribeiro and Greg Moore in the players, Reynard, then Parker Johnstone, another Honda engine car, Bobby Rahal, Gilles de Ferran was 7th, and Adrian Fernandez was 8th on the grid. Some very lowly positions for the experienced runners, big names at the back. Alonso Jr. qualified 12th, Emo was 13th. Michael Andretti very unhappy with the reliability of the new Ford XD engine, down in 15th place. Paul Tracy, a very lowly 25th after he flagged off his qualifying lap with handling problems. So really it looks as though, for the early part of the season at least, it's the package to have is the Honda Firestone. Little doubt about that. Parker Johnstone there, carving his way through the field. Out the front is Alex Zanardi, and Gilles de Ferran, one of the few drivers not running a Honda engine to run at the front. Also Bobby Rahal, you saw there, just in shot as well. We've got a yellow flag, the first yellow flag of this race. We have a car parked on the infield. Can't quite tell which corner that is. Looks like Paul Tracy from where I'm sitting, from the helmet. No, it's Juan Fangio, in fact. Fangio, similar helmet to Tracy's. Of course, Fangio running the All-American Racers Toyota car, and he's already been a visitor to the wall this weekend. Must tell you, while we've got the yellow flag now, that this has been a very eventful qualifying session, and two big accidents, one of which, the worst of which, to Scott Goodyear, who had a very hefty impact with the wall, was airlifted to hospital, and Dr. Terry Trammell announced last night that he has a broken 15th vertebrae. So Goodyear very unlucky, or possibly very lucky depending on which way you look at it. He was airlifted to hospital, and that vertebrae broken, and he felt numbness in his right leg as well. But Terry Trammell says there is no chance that Goodyear will be paralysed. So very good news for Goodyear, and our thoughts to him, his family and the team, and we wish him a very speedy recovery. Another visitor to the wall, Christian Fittipaldi. He had to have an x-ray on his neck, because you remember back in '92 when he was driving for Minardi in Formula One, he had a very bad neck injury which made him miss most of the season. And in fact it was Alex Zanardi on that occasion who stood in for Christian Fittipaldi in the Minardi team. Anyway, Fittipaldi worried he may have aggravated that old injury. He didn't, and he starts today's race from the back of the grid in the Newman Haas Lola Ford. Heavy rain on Friday night, track temperatures very high, the temperature generally very high all weekend, and no chance of rain, we're told. So Alex Zanardi leading the race. Let's go over to our American commentators in Rio de Janeiro.
4 of 133 laps in the books at Rio. An unbelievable event being put on down here. Emerson Fittipaldi, it's been his dream for 10 years to get the Indycars to go down to Brazil, and they talked to a crowd of possibly 200,000, 150, 200,000 people showing up for this event. They named the speedway the Emerson Fittipaldi Speedway, and it's been a dream for him to get all these guys out there and then to have 8 Brazilians in the field when they do go. Unbelievable. Of course, the international feed and the Brazilian, there's 10 million viewers a week in Brazil at these Indycars, and it was only 2 weeks till the Formula One guys go to Brazil.
They've got a real feast of speed over the next 2 weeks down there in Brazil, and IndyCar has become incredibly popular. Here we go, and I think we may be going back.
I saw the lights are off, so it looks like we could be green this time by. Zanardi, Ribeiro and Vasser come by to get the green flag. Then you have Greg Moore, Gilles de Ferran, Bobby Rahal, Adrian Fernandez, Scott Pruitt, and then down to Robbie Gordon. Paul Tracy's come up a few places from the back, but Christian Fittipaldi and Raul Boesel not moved as of yet.
lost it again. Nice move by Zanardi. Zanardi's really come on incredibly strongly.
Having a great battle. Greg Moore getting by Vassar. Greg Moore had an unbelievable run in Miami, his first IndyCar race, and then he got a black flag penalty, but he made up the lap that he lost on that, ended up finishing 7th and picking up some valuable points for the championship.
And towards the end of the race in Miami, he was quick. He was quickest of everybody out there for a long time after that stop-go, dry, wet race.
Oh, Ribeiro getting terribly sideways, almost making contact with the wall. A big, big moment for him. We saw he had one of those in practice on Friday and managed to save it, but that was unbelievable. This is at 204 miles per hour, folks. Here now comes
He had a biggie, yes, and he lost the speed. He scrubbed off speed as a result of that moment, and Greg Moore's popped through into second place now and is indeed breaking the toe immediately to Ribeiro.
Now, we talked about the handling. The drivers are complaining they just couldn't get the grip. The tyres, the Firestone are working out best. The temperatures have been so hot, the cars have actually been sticking to the track. They've been rolling to stop the cars sticking to the track. But the big thing is the downshift. They're going from 6th gear all the way down to 3rd gear on turns 1 and turns 4. Some guys only going down to 4th, depending on the gearing, obviously, in the car. But that's turned out to be a big problem because coming out of turns 1 and 4, you then nail it. You've got 700 horsepower, and if you're not getting the grip, that's what happens. And that's what happened to Andre Ribeiro. Now we see DeFran making a move on Jimmy Vassar. Ribeiro holds the 3rd position, Vassar 4th, Gilles DeFran 5th. Greg Moore has pulled away up in that 2nd position.
And it looks as though turn 1 is going to be the place of choice for everyone to be getting past each other. And you saw DeFran there really going for the inside there. Probably gave Jimmy a little bit of a fright there.
Big question, Christopher, is of course American drivers, Brazilian drivers, Italian, Europeans. How much of it is an advantage for these Brazilian guys? These are conditions they're used to, this humidity, the heat. Obviously, the drivers are top line athletes, but when they're used to it, it makes it a little bit easier, correct?
Yeah, they're used to the heat, you betcha, but the thing we mustn't forget is the impact of this crowd. I mean, in the days when Senna used to lead a Formula One race, he used to say it was worth a second a lap, and there is perhaps proof of the pudding. We see DeFran driving through on the inside. That was a nice move.
Nice move getting by Jimmy Vassar. This is what we talked about. Because of the braking and the downshifting, this is where we're going to see a lot of overtaking on this oval. The Emerson Fittipaldi Speedway in Rio de Janeiro, actually at the Nelson Piquet Autodrome. And they've named this section. They're using the main straightaway that the Formula One cars use.
Yeah, and the interesting thing is it looks a little as though Moore is getting away from the following bunch there. Yes, he is. Look, he's out. Oh, and a big moment for Mo Gugelmin. That's
Mark Blundell, I believe. Mark Blundell in only his 2nd IndyCar start. A big, big moment. Hard contact up against the wall. He's moving about. He's okay. He's going to be able to get out of the car. Mark Blundell, his 2nd IndyCar start. The first IndyCar start he had was not a good one, to say the least. Coming off turn 4 for the green flag at Miami, he looped it. And now here, just about 15 laps into the race, we'll get another look. There you see, under braking. Oh.
And he nearly took out his teammate there.
Very awkward.
That's why we had a little doubt as to who that was. He actually, whoa, that's a big hit. But look how strong those cars are.
Oh,
yeah, no,
he got out
we're
of the car,
not happy to see that. He got out of the car all right. I think that's Terry Trammell there from the IndyCar Medical Unit who's already with him. We hope Mark's all right. He said to me before this season that he's not yet happy on the ovals. He's had to start the season with the oval in Miami and then this race here. And oh, that's a big impact, guy.
That is a huge impact. A big problem we had last year with a lot of guys on the impact with the gear linkage was braking and then getting them in the thigh, hurting them in the thigh. A lot of guys went to a wire linkage. I don't know if the Pac West team was able to do that. And remember, Danny Sullivan, who drove this car last year, also had a huge impact, but that was high speed. We're talking 200 miles an hour.
We're talking nearly 200 miles an hour, and if nothing else, the belts and so on will have hurt Mark. I think it looks as though his legs are all right, his shoulders and arms, and we hope.
Mark Blundell, of course, has signed a deal with Eurosport Television, and they'll be covering this race for him. But a disastrous start of the season for Mark Blundell. Zanardi leads over Moore, and Ribeiro, DeFran is 4th, and Vassar 5th.
Back to the IndyCar Series, live with Husqvarna, Forest and Garden.
Welcome back to the inaugural Rio 400. James Allen, Guy Hobbs and Christopher Tate with you for this groundbreaking, history-making first race ever by Indy cars in Brazil. And I'm sure I join with all Mark Blundell fans around Britain and the rest of Europe in wishing Mark a speedy recovery. It doesn't look particularly clever, although he has got the very best medical attention. Let's have a quick look now at the accident. Something very strange happened. You can see the puff of smoke on the outside of the line. Very nearly took out Mo Gugelmin, and then unfortunately for Mark, he reduced his angle against the wall. He could have gone in much shallower than that initially, but the car bit right, and it put him in at a fairly steep angle to the wall. He got out of the car okay, popped his belts, obviously a lot of adrenaline running there, and then made his way, it seemed, towards the rescue vehicle, but then collapsed on the outside of the circuit, and he's got the medical crews around with him. Obviously, the big impact like that is nothing. Doesn't seem to be anything wrong with his legs as he got out of the car, but obviously the belts would have made quite an impression on his chest. And well, pointless to speculate, but we hope he will be well very soon, and we hope that we will get a report for you as soon as possible on Blundell's condition. And you can see he's made a bit of a mess of that Reynard Ford. Quite a bit of oil has come out of the broken car, and sand and sawdust has been put down on it. It'll take a little bit of a time before that is cleared up, because that's quite a critical area of the racetrack. You see where he's gone in. It's the exit of the corner, and the cars do tend to go out wide. Let's have another look again. Look at the speed with which he hits the wall. Poor Mark Blundell, only his second IndyCar race, but his second on an oval. Had a tough time at Homestead, spinning on the opening lap before the green flag had even been thrown, and then struggling through to 17th place at the end, finding it quite a handful adapting to the oval circuits. Of course, he's under the watchful eye of Alan Mertens, the chief engineer of Galmar Engineering, who of course contracted by Pac West to do all the engineering work on this team, on these cars. And Alan Mertens knows just about everything there is to know about success on ovals, having engineered Al Unser Jr. to the Indy 500 in 1990 and the IndyCar title that year. And he's in fact built Indy cars himself in the past. The Galmar of 1990 was one of his cars. So while attention, there's a great view of Rio de Janeiro, the Sugar Loaf Mountain, Corcovado, a beautiful, beautiful city, and tropical temperatures, tropical heat this weekend. A lot of rain, as I mentioned before, and very high temperatures, 34 degrees today for this race. And dehydration, a bit of a problem during the practice runs. I'm sure it will be again today. A lot of the drivers carrying onboard drinks bottles. When the race was stopped, Alex Zanardi, the former Formula One driver, the Italian, ex of Lotus, and Minardi, knows a thing or two about big accidents, of course. Think back to the 1993 season at Spa-Francorchamps, driving for Lotus. Zanardi had a huge accident at Eau Rouge, and well, that was basically more or less the end of his Formula One career. It took him quite a long time to get over that. He had quite severe concussion, had to sit in a dark room for a long time. And well, he drove last year a Lotus in the Global GT Championship and got a class win, in fact, in Class GT2 at Silverstone with Alex Portman in the rain. A brilliant driver, outstanding career in Formula 3000, winning 2 races in 1991 to finish second in the championship behind Christian Fittipaldi. Quick look at the point standings coming out of Homestead. Vassar leads, of course, after that win, his first win in Indy cars. De Ferran second, Robbie Gordon and Pruitt at real close tussle for third place. And Scott Goodyear down there in 13th place. We mentioned before that he's broken a vertebrae in his back. It could be some time before we see him in an Indy car again. So this new oval at Rio, claiming a few victims in the early stages. Just tell you a little bit about it. It's 1.868 miles round. It's a D-shape oval, and the drivers have to brake and downshift for 2 corners, the first corner and the 4th corner, and then they go out around a very flat left-hander. Obviously, all the corners are left-handers. That's what qualifies it for being an oval. Another very quick left-hander, and then a much tighter, almost 90-degree left-hander. And it's at Jacarapagua, 25 miles south of Rio de Janeiro. And Jacarapagua, of course, the circuit which hosted the Formula One Grand Prix up until 1989. The last race there, won by Nigel Mansell, his first victory for Ferrari. And third place on that occasion was Mauricio Gugelmin. in the Leighton House March, and Morris is in this IndyCar field today. There's the international flavour of the Rio 400. 10 drivers from the United States, 8 from Brazil, 2 from Canada. And those 8 from Brazil being Emerson Fittipaldi, Christian Fittipaldi, Gilles de Ferran, Andre Ribeiro, Marco Greco, Raul Boesel and Maurice Gugelmin. Gugelmin, a huge media celebrity in Brazil. In fact, does a lot of adverts on television, and his poultry commercials, believe it or not, have actually won awards for marketing in Brazil. His father, a big timber merchant, and Morris is one of the biggest sporting media celebrities in Brazil. Of course, the real reason why we're here in Rio de Janeiro is Emerson Fittipaldi. Because of his success, and because, of course, the fact he owns the Brazilian TV rights to IndyCar racing and has built up an enormous audience for the sport over the last few years. Champion in 1989 in IndyCars, winner of the Indy 500, of course, in 89 and again in 93. Emo owns a 500,000-acre orange plantation in Brazil, also a huge Mercedes-Benz dealership. He's also a partner in Hugo Boss Brazil. So Emerson Fittipaldi, very instrumental in bringing the Indy cars to Brazil, and I'm sure he's benefiting greatly from it generally. Huge crowd turned out today. Let's a look at some of the boys from Brazil, as they call them. Emerson Fittipaldi, at the ripe old age of 49. He's won an IndyCar race in every one of the 11 seasons he started. 185 starts in total. And there the rest of them. Christian Fittipaldi, of course, now with Newman Haas, teammate to Michael Andretti. Gilles de Ferran, much fancied this year. He was the Rookie of the Year in 1995 with the Hall Reynard team. There he is, the second car in your picture, the Pennzoil car, running this year with Reynard chassis and Honda engine and Goodyear tyres. And de Ferran, very much one of the favourites for the IndyCar title. Looks like it could be fought out between some of these young guys. Jimmy Vasser, Gilles de Ferran. Who knows, even Alex Zanardi, who can get some steam up, possibly win this race, and a few others during the season, might even be able to challenge for the championship. But it's great to see a lot of young drivers coming up in IndyCar racing. It had a reputation for a number of years of being a place for fossils. A number of retired Formula One drivers and other drivers who'd come from other areas of American racing. People like AJ Foyt as well, who'd been around for donkey's years. Great to see the big legends, of course, in the IndyCar series, but it's good to see that as they have moved away, the Mario Andretti's, the AJ Foyts of this world, the Danny Sullivans of this world, they've been replaced by some serious racing drivers, the likes of Zanardi, Greg Moore, Jimmy Vasser, even Andre Ribeiro doing a good job. Won his first race, of course, last year at New Hampshire. British Formula 3 fans will remember Ribeiro drove for Paul Stewart Racing a few years back. That's one of the jet dryers, just blowing away the debris, bits of carbon fibre, possibly little bits of sand and sawdust which may have been left over from that oil spillage, just making sure that there's absolutely nothing on the circuit, on the surface of it, because if the worst thing on an oval is debris, little shards of anything, glass, metal, carbon fibre, puncture a tyre, and these cars are doing, as you saw from Mark Blundell's accident just before, doing very high speeds, 180, 190 miles an hour into some of these turns. The last thing you need is a puncture at that sort of speed. Remind you that it has been raining this weekend, Friday night. If it rains again and it's more than half distance has gone in this race, then the results will be official. But if it's before half distance, then the results will not be official. The cars will not run in the rain. So let's hope that the rain clouds stay away. It looks pretty sunny from the shadows being cast by the cars. And let's hope that soon the track will be cleared and we'll be able to go green and go racing again in his first ever Rio 400. No confirmation of it yet, but I saw on the internet over the weekend, posted by one of the Brazilian correspondents, that a deal has been agreed for the Rio 400 for the next 3 years. But as I say, no confirmation of that yet from IndyCar, so don't take that as gospel. However, Andrew Craig, the president of IndyCar, who recently re-signed for another 3 years as president, says he aims for oval races in Japan and also in Great Britain. Hasn't given up the idea of running in Great Britain on the oval at Corby is the one he's talking about in the Midlands, not far from Donington Park. It's gone a bit quiet on the Corby front in the last couple of years. A lot of talk about that when Mansell, of course, was in IndyCar racing, but Andrew Craig very keen to develop this expansion of oval racing overseas. The rule, of course, concerning oval racing is that the FIA rule, FIA who of course govern the sport globally and have a particular stranglehold on Formula One, they don't want to encourage the expansion of IndyCar racing overseas, and so a few years ago they established a rule which said that IndyCars can only race overseas, outside of North America that is, if they race on an oval, and they defined an oval as a circuit on which all the corners turn in the same direction, and that's usually left. Now, this Rio Oval qualifies under that rule because all the corners do turn left, but unlike most ovals tracks, in fact unlike all oval tracks that the IndyCars race on, as you can see from that shot there is no banking in the turns. All the 1 mile ovals and the 2.5 mile super speedways, and even the new Homestead Indy complex, all have banking, some as much as 12-14 degrees banking. And I know I walked up the banking at Phoenix a few years ago for a TV show I was doing then, and it was absolutely exhausting walking from the apex of the corner up to the wall at the top. You really don't believe how steep it is until you see them in the flesh. That was the corner that Mansell had his big accident on, and I walked up from the bottom up to the wall, and believe me, it was very steep, almost like the wall of death. Raul Boesel, 11 seasons in IndyCar racing, yet to win one. 5 times in second place, twice in third place. And of course this year he moved from the Rahal team, who he was with last year, to take Jacques Villeneuve's place with Team Green, which, owing to the sponsorship which Boesel has brought with him, which is Brahma beer, a very popular beer in Brazil, the team has now been rechristened to Team Brahma Sports, which suits the marketing people in America down to the ground, shows just the cooperation that can exist between marketing people and IndyCar teams. Obviously IndyCar, one of the really very keen to develop their marketing and to strengthen their commercial basis, because this series faces a stern challenge this year from Tony George's breakaway Indy Racing League, which is based around the blue ribbon event of the Indianapolis 500. And Tony George, the president of Indianapolis Motor Speedway, set up his own series, and it's caused a few headaches to Andrew Craig and all the team owners in IndyCar racing. There have been some crisis meetings in the last few weeks, particularly between Roger Penske, the most powerful team owner in IndyCars, and 10 times I think it is a winner at Indianapolis, and Tony George, but they've yielded nothing. George tried to put out a little olive branch to the team. Initially he'd said that 25 of the top 33 places at Indy this year would be taken by IRL teams, and they'll be really scraping the barrel to get the 25th car on the grid, and the remaining 8 places would be the ones that would be open to cars running in this IndyCar series. Well, obviously that's completely unacceptable to any serious racing team, particularly when you might have a situation where the guy starting 26th would be several miles an hour faster than the pole sitter, which is a good chance that would happen. So IndyCar not taking it seriously, refusing Tony George's offer, and it must be said that the Indy 500 is looking a little thin in terms of the entry list. There's some very good runners in the IRL, some young guys coming through, perhaps a little bit early for them to be thrown into the limelight. Tony Stewart, who finished second in that first IRL race at Disneyland, a very serious racing driver, the sort of guy who would have come into IndyCar racing, possibly Indy Lights first and then IndyCar racing, but because of this breakaway series, the opportunity to make some serious prize money that Tony George is giving away, he's gone straight into the IRL, and there are those that question whether that's a good thing, but time will tell. Stewart's first ever rear-engined motor race was the Disney 200, and he finished second behind Buzz Corkin. So a lot of questions being raised about the IRL and how long it'll last. Some people saying it'll only last a couple of years. Of course, they're bringing in a spec formula next year. But one thing's for sure, it's extremely important for the IndyCars to strengthen their base, to get the commercial base sorted out. And the US 500, which will be held at Michigan the same day as the Indianapolis 500, will be live and exclusive here on Eurosport. And I'll be there to bring you all the action. Robbie Gordon comes into the pits, just checking those tyres for any evidence of debris. Thought maybe he might have picked up a puncture or possibly some shards of carbon fibre in his front right tyre. And just taking on board a little bit of fuel. You never know what can happen on these oval races. When the yellow flags and fuel stops, absolutely critical. And that's how races can be won and lost. So that effectively a splash and dash for Robbie Gordon. Just put just a few gallons of extra fuel just in case anything happens. And yellow flag obviously the best time to do that, because the rest of the field is running at greatly reduced speed compared to normal. The car's now looking as though they're going to pick up speed. The pace car indeed has gone off ahead. Alex Zanardi leads for the first time in his very brief so far IndyCar career from Greg Moore, Andre Ribeiro, Gilles de Ferran and Jimmy Vasser. 3 Honda Firestone engine runners in the top 5, 2 Mercedes engines. So let's go back to Rio de Janeiro and our commentators, Guy Hobbs and Christopher Tate.
Looks as though he's going to get jumped by Pruitt.
Maybe he's had trouble getting up to speed, because suddenly it looks like a couple of guys are going to get by him. Pruitt and Parker Johnston. Of course, Parker Johnston in the Honda. How about a story there from Ray Hall? Gave up the Honda program. He's the one who persuaded them to go in IndyCar racing.
And now he's got to sit there and watch them all running away from him. Well, that's motor racing. Yes, it looks that Ray Hall is notoriously wide, of course, out there, and it looks as though he's managed to hold off the threat just temporarily, but Pruitt bobbing around in his slipstream.
He's following him. We talked about some of the weaving and diving we saw at Miami, but everybody was doing it, so they kind of just let it go. There generally is some warnings. There's Alonso Jr., the first we've seen of him all day, not having a good run in the Mercedes Penske.
Right? Here we are with Michael, and Andretti had a really disappointing qualifying. He wasn't happy at all, and the post-qualifying quotes from him were very brisk and concise. He's not been a happy camper so far this season. He's looking a little strong in. He's going, no, I'm not sure he's going to do that there.
The Ford Lola combination on Goodyears as well. Michael Andretti trying to make a move down the inside. There you can see how quickly they're speeding. You can hear him shifting back up to 6th gear. There's into 6th right now as we belt down the front straightaway, and maybe a move down the inside of Alonso Jr. Back through the gears again. And yes, Michael Andretti is able to pick up the position. Now back up through the gears. That's turn 1. That one's flat. That's turn 2. Back onto the back straightaway. Here we're up at 204 miles per hour. Very, very bumpy. Turn 3. No shifting for this one. Just a quick kink, as Emerson Fittipaldi described it. Now into turn 4. Back down through the gears. Under heavy braking. That's where Blundell went off.
And you can see why there. Did you see how Michael was juddering around under braking there as he came into that corner? Michael leading Al Jr., and these two are old rivals. Had a number of difficult coming together last year, but it looks as though they're safely past each other for the moment.
You know, I've noticed this year, Michael, in both qualifying at Miami and here, he's quoted this, well, at this point, we're not qualifying as well, so we're just going to try and have a good run. He's not even talking about winning, he's just like trying to talk about being consistent and just pick up points for the championship as it goes on. I think he's pretty succumbed to the fact that the Honda Firestone is the combination to have this year, particularly here at Rio, and he realizes that his chances of winning are very, very slim here.
He has sounded a little dispirited guy this year. I mean, he's got 4 points in the bag after the first race in Miami, and he's having a steady run here, and as we've said, there are going to be at least 3 stops. We've already had some yellows. This race is full of variables. Anything might yet happen, and I'm disappointed to see Michael not feeling perhaps as confident and as bouncy as he usually does.
New paint job on that car, normally black and white, looks all black this year, and Christian Fittipaldi's is all red. A lot of red cars in the series this year. It makes it a bit confusing to call them after only a couple of races, but we're riding on board right now with Michael Andretti.
And Christian further confused us by changing his helmet colour, which used to be the famous yellow with the green teardrops on it, just like his father Wilson used to have.
And to confuse us even more, they put a higher cockpit side, so you can't even pick out the helmets as well as you used to be able to. There you see the run down the front straightaway. Here's Pruitt in 9th position. Michael Andretti's next target. Pruitt running on the Firestones.
Michael's going nicely now, yep, and it looks as though he is going to be able to start making up some places. So maybe he's decided that there's no point sitting around wondering why he hasn't got a Honda engine, and he better get on with the race.
Well, we always talk about Christopher in the oval situations. It's a great compromise on getting the car set up right. You get the rebound and the spring all right. You got to get the wings right. You got to get the setup of the car right. But you'll notice a lot of times cars will be going very, very poorly in the beginning of a race, but the track conditions will change so much. The car will come right back to them, and then they're able to go very quickly again. We saw that happen to Nigel Mansell in Nazareth. He dropped right to the back. By the end of the race, though, he was much, much quicker than everybody else because due to the pit stops, he changed the setup of the car a little bit, and the track came back to his favour, and you can see a lot of changes happening in these cars.
Yeah, and the interesting thing is here, the compromise that the engineers are having to run on these cars. You'll notice that they're running the oval spec wings, and indeed Adrian Fernandez seemed to be getting a bit of a push there in turn 3 because he's running so little wing. Look how flat that rear wing is. But I think that for many of them, they are feeling that the chop down from 200 to 100 miles an hour, very unusual on an oval. Their handling is very compromised indeed.
We should be getting to our first round of scheduled pit stops. No one really took advantage of that yellow flag. Really, that's a case of if the leader goes in, you go in. The leader didn't go in. Robbie Gordon did go in, but he had a problem. But they gave him a chance to refuel, which means he'll still need to go in to get tyres if they go away from him, but not at this point. Now you see Junior making a move on Scott Pruitt, so Pruitt may be going away on his car.
Obviously this circuit, being so completely new, has only got the rubber laid down on it from this, and I think there's also a support race later on this afternoon for stock cars, but basically this is a rubber-free track, and they've just had 3 days of practice and qualifying in order to get a surface down on it. And so as the race goes on, the surface will be changing, and we can expect different conditions and different handling as the race moves on.
Alonso Jr. and Michael Andretti in our picture frame there. Alonso Jr. with 205 career starts, 31 wins. Michael Andretti is second in the win column with 30. There you see Mauricio Guzman, the only Pac West car left out there. Of course, the Brazilian racing in front of his hometown crowd.
Yes, and we hope that he's not been too affected by seeing his teammate and good friend. They've been friends for a long time during their years racing in Europe, Mark Blundell. But it looks as though, from all we hear, Mark is fine and he will be back out there later on. So Mauricio should now be able to get his head down and get on with the job.
That was Brian Hurd who we saw right behind him, but here's the battle for the lead. Greg Moore and Alessandro Zanardi. Zanardi seemed to be very comfortable leading for the first time in his IndyCar career. I mentioned it was his first ever pole. He did actually have a pole back in Formula 3000, but of course standing start, different racing conditions totally for that first IndyCar pole.
It really is remarkable when you consider he's not really done much single-seater running since the end of '93. And this is a tough race to be out there leading.
And you might think that may be a record coming to your second race, but of course it's not. Nigel Mansell took the pole at Australia in his debut in the IndyCar.
Yes, he certainly did, and confounded all the critics by then going out and running well on ovals as well.
Actually, an interesting point too. We'll go back to Jimmy Vasser in a minute when we see Greg Moore and Zanardi battling here. Jimmy Vasser won the opening race in Miami. 2 of the last 3 seasons, the winner of the opening race has gone on to win the championship. Maybe that's a profit there for Jimmy Vasser. Right now, he's struggling further back in the field, actually in about 5th or 6th position, but this is the battle for first. Zanardi and Greg Moore both getting by Hiro Matsushita, the first of the people to get lapped, the back markers, and now they're going to be making their mark and trying to get by, I believe. That is, that's the Eddie Lawson car.
That is the Eddie Lawson car, and Zanardi, I'm impressed. He came chopping through the traffic there. It's difficult to take traffic in the lead in your early experience of oval racing. Greg Moore knows a lot more about it, and he's sitting there right over Zanardi's shoulder, waiting to see what's going to happen.
Here's Fangio. They put a lap on him too down the backstretch, and they clear track in front of them, so we should see some good racing here between Moore and Zanardi. No banking really to speak of here, maybe about 2 degrees in a couple of the turns.
Yes, and we're just hearing that Mark Blundell is awake and that he's showing every sign of going to make a rapid recovery. He says that his brakes went away, which would certainly explain, Guy, the speed with which he flew off.
Well, we saw him locked up the front, but then maybe obviously they did after that point disappear on him, and then he just went very, very hard contact straight into the wall, not the way particularly you want to go. No, we actually don't want to go to the wall anyway.
We don't want to go into the wall anyway, but we saw Christian Fittipaldi's qualifying practice crash, and Christian going in backwards, if you like, looked a little safer than Mark's accident there. But that's good news to hear about Blundell.
Zanardi still putting on a great show here. Round 2 of the 1996 PPG IndyCar World Series. Here's Greg Moore, though.
should have been Moore's corner.
I think maybe Zanardi had a better slingshot too, just coming out from behind Greco there. Zanardi continues to lead over Greg Moore, 20 years old. He won 10 races at the Indy Lights Championship last year, and obviously the championship stepped into this. He had actually been assigned a driver for the Forsyth team for just over a year. They always knew they were going to put him in. He's Canadian. The player sponsorship switched from Team Green to Forsyth, and here you see Greg Moore running players and having a great season up to date. Gilles de France getting blocked just a little bit there by Marco Greco as he tries to come around and put him a lap down and stay in contact with the leaders. Actually, that's Ribeiro. He's battling with too. So Ribeiro and de France both going around the back marker, and then de France picking up the position.
Yes, I think Ribeiro perhaps didn't quite spot what was happening there, but de France came past him very quickly, and he's not taking that for very long. He's going to go back for the inside there.
It's a Honda first, third, and fourth, and of course Greg Moore running in second position.
Ribeiro really has been impressive these last few months. Ever since he won his first race at New Hampshire, he's looked a very confident guy. And let's face it, when he came over here, it was unexpected as to how well he'd do. Not had a great time in European Formula 3 and so on. He made a tremendous impression in Indy Lights, and in the second half of 95 onwards, he's just done a great job. The Honda people are thrilled with him, and so are the Tasman people. Steve Horn can't speak highly enough of him, and he's running very nicely here.
Zanardi continues to lead. You see him wobble just a little bit there. Again, we talk about the grip, and you see how bumpy it is there as they bounce up and down coming out of the exit of that turn. Ribeiro in the background of the picture trying to stay with Gilles de France as both of them try to chase down our leaders. Moore tucks in underneath the wing. This will affect the aerodynamics, of course, and Zanardi just a little bit. And then Moore's going to try and put a move on him and lead for the second time this year in the championship.
That's a very nice point, Guy. Did you see then how the rear end of Zanardi's car did get a little bit light there as Moore came in underneath his rear wing? He was running really close there.
And that's, of course, something that Zanardi really wouldn't be quite so used to coming from Formula 1. As much as they have all the aerodynamics, this drafting process on an oval is not quite the same, and it can really affect the shape of the car, and you can get terribly out of line in a big, big hurry.
Not as much of a shock as the Formula 1 boys get when they go and join the International Race of the Champions, with the NASCAR boys deliberately trying to unsettle them.
Well, the IROC racing, of course, yes, International Race of Champions. Robbie Gordon competing in that this year had an unbelievable run to finish second in round one in Daytona.
Yeah, but you're right. I think Zanardi there just wasn't quite expecting that. He looked a little surprised and allowed Moore to close up a little more. And Adrian is in the wall. Fernandez taps the wall there in the Tecate Quaker State, and that's a shame to see that there. And it doesn't look as though he's going to be moving from there. That's a get out of the car.
That's the Tasman entry of Adrian Fernandez in the Tecate Quaker State entry in 1996 Lola Honda. He is running Firestone tyres. His day is coming to an end, and Fernandez will come out. And the leaders are going to, here you see the replay, Fernandez loops it around and doesn't make anything like a serious contact. Watch him let go of the steering wheel. No, maybe he doesn't. Anything like the contact that Mark Blundell did, but it will have done suspension damage, and he will be out of the race. But the leaders are in. Here is Alessandro Zanardi making his first pit stop as a leader in the Indy Series.
And a tense moment for him, but he gets away nicely. Now, you would have
Greg Moore out too. Speed limit in the pit lane today, 80 miles per hour.
Oh, nice stop by the Ganassi boys. That's a good run. That's neat. In fact, if anything, I'd say Guy gained a few yards, wouldn't you?
Absolutely, yeah. He came out of there very well. Gilles Frank
And Michael has come chopping back up through there.
He had a great pit stop. Brian Herter having problems in the pits.
Yep, he stalled it as he ran. Oh!
Here comes Pruitt, Fangio, Christian Fittipaldi, and Paul Tracy behind them.
That's all just a little bit tight in the pit lane. I'm glad I wasn't trying to push back Herter's car there.
No kidding, wouldn't want to be one of the team members. And it looks like then Zanardi was able to make his pit stop quickest, get out and continue with the lead. Greg Moore came out right behind him in second. So far, it's Firestones in the top five all day. Honda's four of the top five, and Greg Moore, the fastest of the Mercedes, currently running in that second position. We are under yellow flag at this point, though, so we'll all back up behind the pace car. And
Fernandez may be determined to give it a bit of a run. He's just lost his front wing, but I mean, Adrian's all there, as you can see. I mean, there's nothing wrong with him. And it doesn't look, Guy, does it, as though the suspension's affected in any way?
No, I thought maybe it had been knocked off the skew at least, but it hasn't. Oh, here's Herter finally getting away in the Team Rahall's backup car. Raul Boesel drove him last year. Now Brian Herter goes from Ganassi to Rahal, picks up the Shell sponsorship, not running as well as he would like, pulls in right behind
to the IndyCar Series, live with Valvoline Motor Oil.
You're back live at the Rio 400. James Allen, Guy Hobbs and Christopher Tate with you. Glad to have you along. After 43 of 133 laps, we're on yellow. Alex Zanardi still leads from Greg Moore. And then in third place, Gilles de Ferran. Vassar fourth, Ribeiro fifth. Parker Johnstone is sixth. Bobby Rahal is seventh. And Michael Andretti is in eighth place. The reason for the yellow flag, Adrian Fernandez making his second visit of the weekend to the wall. The first time he did quite a bit of damage to his car. That was on Friday in practice. Today during the race, he just knocked his nose cone off, and very lucky boy that he is, he managed to make it round again, and he will restart. Problems for Brian Herter in the pit lane. Not quite sure whether he overshot his pit, which is certainly what it looked like initially. Had to be pushed back anyway, and he wasn't really featuring in the top 15 at the time, but Brian Herter struggling again this weekend in the Rahal team. Now, the psychology. Moore knows everything there is to know about ovals, even though he's only been in Indy Lights for 3. Look how close he is at the back of Zanardi, and I think he's going to out-drag Zanardi as they go into turn 1 this time. Zanardi's still very inexperienced on the IndyCar restart. Look how close Moore is up the gearbox of Zanardi. Zanardi comes down low. Moore keeps his foot in. No. Zanardi's not having it. They go around the inside of the back marker, and Zanardi, what bravery. Of course, the Honda engine will have contributed somewhat to that, giving out a great deal more power, so IndyCar insiders tell me, than the Mercedes or the Ford engine. And just look how Zanardi has been able to leave Moore behind as they accelerated down the back straight out of turn 1. In car with Robbie Gordon. Down the inside of that back marker. Didn't quite get a glimpse of who that was. Robbie Gordon running outside the top 10 before that yellow flag period, but Zanardi down the back straight ahead of Moore. The order as you see it isn't necessarily the order on the road, because Gordon, I think, is a lap down. So Ribeiro and de Ferran, the two Brazilians, having a great scrap for third place. Parker Johnstone well up this weekend. Had a big accident in qualifying for the first race at Homestead. Dr. Terry Trammell and Steve Olvey told him he couldn't race, so very unwillingly Parker Johnstone watched the race from the sidelines, but quite outstanding in qualifying here for this race. Qualifying a very fine 5th place for, well, he's not had a tremendous amount of IndyCar experience, stuck it on pole for last year's Michigan 500, but Parker Johnstone really making the most of the Firestone tyres and the Honda engine. De Ferran and Ribeiro down the back straightaway. A really great scrap these two are having. Haven't seen too much yet from the Penske runners, Al Unser Jr. and Paul Tracy. Tracy, of course, started at the back of the grid because he had handling problems in qualifying and wasn't able to record a qualifying lap. Al Unser Jr. qualified a lowly 12th, and well, I was showing him 9th when Fernandez went into the wall. So we wait to see a leaderboard and to see where Al Unser Jr. is. But a lot of other things going through Al Unser Jr.'s mind at the moment, apart from racing, with the sad news that his wife Shelley has filed for divorce. Those two have a couple of daughters and a son who's appropriately named Mini Al, because Unser Senior is Big Al, Al Unser Jr. Little Al, and now Little Al's son is Mini Al. But sad news that Shelley, his wife, filing for divorce, and I'm sure that that will be at the back of Unser Jr.'s mind. 85 laps to go. Zanardi leads by half a second over Greg Moore, and well, it's worth talking for a second about Greg Moore, the Indy Lights champion, 10 wins last season, unprecedented, beating Paul Tracy's record from 1991. Let's go back to Rio. Guy Hobbs and Chris Tate.
IndyCar and Formula One are right out there, and Villeneuve's performance really impressed all the pundits. I think everyone expected him to be quick through winter testing, and then come the racing, find it wasn't that easy.
So Villeneuve goes over and does very well in Formula One, and now Alexander Zanardi comes from Formula One to IndyCar and does unbelievably well here at the Oval. His second only ever, as he leads this race over Greg Moore, the Canadian, the rookie. Got two rookies out front.
It looks like a fair trade so far, doesn't it? Very, very.
They're having a good battle too, as is de Franc's 3rd, 4th and 5th position. Gordon's moved up the field quite well. Then we have Al Unser Jr. and behind him Michael Andretti.
Little Al and Michael are right there. They're making time. They're closing down on those young guns, if you like. We call young guns at the front, and they're going to be there. They're going to be there or thereabouts, and come the second stop, after the second stop, I think we can expect to see Unser and Andretti looking strong.
There was talk of Robbie Gordon as we watch him battle here with Ribeiro and Gilles de France, that he may not go to the US 500 and would in fact go to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway for the Indy 500. Well, Derek Walker has made an official announcement. That's not so. Robbie Gordon will go to the Michigan race, the US 500 coming up on the same day in May. Qualifying for that the weekend of May 10th, 11th and 12th. We've got a couple more races before then. Australia, Long Beach and Nazareth before that big race coming up. But Gordon now continuing to hold third position over Andre Ribeiro and then Gilles de France. Good day for the Brazilians in Brazil.
Yes, and when we do get to the US 500, I think Robbie Gordon's got to fancy his chances. He's going to look strong on the high-speed ovals.
Done very well there before. Greg Moore made a challenge on the restart, but seems to have dropped back a bit from Zanardi. Now Robbie Gordon goes by, and Ribeiro will try and make a move on the inside to stay in contact for that third position as they make their way around one of the back markers.
I think that's Greco, yeah.
Greco, of course, last week he raced for a different team. Now he's in the car that would have been driven by Eliseo Salazar this year. Salazar, though, had a huge wreck in Orlando at the IRL race and had a part of the suspension go into his thigh bone. Took him out of the Daytona 24 hours, the IRL races, and then the IndyCar races. He's okay. He should be back in racing probably by about May. But a disappointing run for Salazar. And talking of the Daytona 24 hours, congratulations out to Wayne Taylor, Jim Pace, and Eric Van der Poel, who won basically the Florida 36 hours. They won the Sebring 12 hours, concluding last night. Congratulations to them.
And of course, the Ferrari that was second should have been carrying Eliseo, and so it's nice to know. We spoke to Eliseo recently. He's really making a rapid recovery, and yes, he hopes to be there at Indianapolis, where he's got to fancy his chances, while the IndyCar boys are all at Michigan.
Robbie Gordon, Ribeiro, and Gilles de France continue to battle for third, fourth, and fifth. We have one of the pit stops in the book scheduled for 3, but with the long yellow flag for Mark Blundell and Fangio earlier on, and also for Aiden Fernandez, we may see this come down to as little as 2 pit stops.
This may well turn out to be a consumption race, Guy. I agree. We've had quite a bit of yellow flag running, and I think that some of the team strategists will be having a little look at the laptop there and just see if it's not possible to try and eke it out.
You know, interesting stories here in Brazil happening. Michael Andretti, of course, his father Mario raced here in 1978 in the Lotus and led the race until 6 laps ago when he broke. But some other guys are coming back to Brazil and have been here with Formula One, Christopher.
Yes, there are 1 or 2, including Brian Lyles, who for 14 years was a Grand Prix engineer, most recently with Tyrrell, and he remembers the famous story. And yeah,
Ferran looks like he's able to pull off a move on Andre Ribeiro.
yeah, and a number of the Formula One engineers, guys, you say, and now with the IndyCar circus, and that's a hot move by Ribeiro.
And he locked it up. Has he saved it? He has. Amazing. That's the 3rd time this weekend he's locked it up and saved it and got squiffy, but he's lost a couple of positions, including Alonso Jr. getting by. Zanardi now up behind Roberto Moreno. Greg Moore coming along with him as these two continue to lead. Robbie Gordon 3rd, Gilles de France a comfortable 4th, Alonso Jr. 5th, and here's Andre Ribeiro, but he must have flat spotted the tyre on that situation.
Yeah, he can't have done that any good. He just began to run out of room there. He went into the corner too hot, had to brake, changed down, and look what he did. But we've got to say that Ribeiro saved on 3 occasions this weekend a number of potentially disastrous looking moves.
Absolutely, he's had some unbelievable saves at very, very high speed, so congratulations to him. He's staying in there and staying in the fight.
That's probably not the way that Steve Horn, the manager of Tasman, wants to live, eh?
It probably wasn't driver instruction, no. There you see Zanardi continue to lead. Now they're trying to get by Carlos Guerrero. Zanardi goes by, Greg Moore goes with him. These two have been out front since the drop of the green flag, basically. Zanardi has got to definitely pick up a point for leading the most laps at this rate. They get past Guerrero, Moore gets past Guerrero, and then along come Robbie Gordon. On board now with Gilles de France as we replay the Andre Ribeiro situation. There you see the left front locked up, tyre smoke comes out, de France shifts and then takes the inside line and makes the move, picks up the position.
And a big grin from Gilles there, I'm sure, because he must have seen that coming when he saw Andre high and outside him like that.
A great race taking place in Rio de Janeiro, the Rio 400, first time outside of North America on an oval since 1971 for the IndyCar series, and Greg Moore and Alessandro Zanardi putting on a great, great show.
And there, just going out of the shot there, was Adrian Fernandez with a new nose cone on his Tecate Quaker Stadium Lola, and it's nice to see that he's back out races in a row when he was finishing in the top 10. Adrian can be very consistent, and he's got the car and the team with him now.
Looks like Paul Tracy going underneath Scott Pruitt. Mark Johnston right behind them as they try and work their way up through the field.
Moore's closer again to Zanardi now, and as they come through the traffic, we can expect to see that gap vary. I'm just very impressed, aren't you, Guy, by the way that Zanardi, with so little oval experience, is managing to deal with this traffic.
It's a great show. And Greg Moore, of course, although a rookie in IndyCar, has been dealing with traffic like this in the Indy Lights on ovals for a couple of years. So he's got lots and lots of experience in this. But for Zanardi to be doing so well, just cutting through traffic, running high, running low, and holding off and charging Greg Moore is a wonderful deal. I think it may come down to the fact that he has the Honda power over the Mercedes. They're both running the Firestone tyres.
But the other feature is, of course, just the sheer frequency with which they're coming up upon the back markers. Zanardi's not used to that. 40-second laps is quite long for a non-super speedway oval in IndyCars, but it's a very short lap in European terms.
The fastest cars are doing 40-second laps. The slower cars are doing more like 44. So there's quite a big difference here on this oval. Normally we see the field much tighter in IndyCars, but quite a big difference here on this oval. Zanardi holding off Greg Moore. We understand there's a report back to pit lane too that Robbie Gordon has a loose headrest and may have a problem with that. May have to have that attended to in the pit lane. But he continues to run third inside of the leaders. Gilles de Ferran right behind him.
But I think Gilles de Ferran is quite a bit closer now, Guy, don't you?
Seems to be working his way up to Gordon. Obviously that won't affect the car too much, but it may be an official ruling where they'll make him come in because they want it to have it fixed. Oh, we've got a problem with Emerson Fittipaldi
In his home race. Poor Emerson. That is not the result he would have wished to have seen.
That is
You can hear the crowd clapping and cheering as he toes in. He's got his hand up. That's half warning everyone behind him and half waving disappointment at his fans. What a sad end. And that's going to bring the yellow out because I'm not sure that he's going to get back into the pit lane. And it has.
And here come the leaders though into the pit lane.
So everyone's diving in.
And more. Same thing. If the leader goes in, basically follow the queue and you go in too. And that's what's happened. Last time Zanardi beat him out. Let's see how this pit stop goes.
Back to the IndyCar Series, live with Bridgestone, the science of performance.
You're back live at the Rio 400. Alex Zanardi leads from Greg Moore. We're in yellow flag. Let's rejoin our commentators.
Having a problem with his headrest. Well, as we were riding with him there all through this yellow flag period, he has been fiddling, reaching over with his right hand and banging his head behind him. And it seems to me that whole 5-inch leather padding area has disappeared from behind his head, and it may have actually slipped down behind his back, which would be incredibly uncomfortable for him. At the moment, we're following the pace car, and I see that Gilles de Ferran stayed out, and he is going to be inheriting the lead as we come back to green flag. This time, he did not go in to refuel or change tires. The other guys just added fuel. So it's now Gilles de Ferran leading. Andre Ribeiro is second. Jimmy Bassett is now third, and then that'll put Zanardi in fourth, Greg Moore in fifth, Michael Andretti in sixth. As we take a look at the field, Emerson Fittipaldi able to solve the problem. He will rejoin the race. May have just run out of fuel or something simple. Lights are out on the pace car. We'll go green flag racing in just a minute. The report is Emerson Fittipaldi had a problem with overheating. Hiro Matsushita is out of the race, and Mauricio Guzman has also pulled out of the race.
Yes, and while they were away to Emerson's yellow there, we did indeed lose Mauricio Guzman, which is a shame. This was a race he was really looking forward to.
Well, with 8 Brazilians, 2 going out there for a moment, Fittipaldi will obviously be at the back of the pack. Would love to put on the show. This is a race he's been dreaming about for 10 years. As I mentioned at the top of the show, over 600 friends here at the race.
But we've got 2 Brazilians there, first and second, over the line. The Ferran in front of Ubrera. And Zanardi's now got to do it all over again, come back past Eddie Lawson, keep himself in front of Greg Moore.
Here comes Unser and Robbie Gordon on Michael Andretti in front of them. Unser's moved up the field pretty well today, consistently running. Here we ride on board once again with Robbie Gordon, struggling with his car and that headrest section behind his helmet. Uncomfortable for him, but it's still staying out there. He'll probably wait till the next round of pit stops to take a look at it.
Yeah, and if our viewers around the world are wondering why that should be so uncomfortable, don't forget that the IndyCar drivers have got a flat back to their helmet to allow the air screen to press the helmet, press them back into the cockpit, and not buffet them so much with all that high-speed air. So when you lose that headrest, and it's probably slipped down behind his back, Rob is very uncomfortable indeed, plus his head is getting battered around in a way he could really be doing without. But as usual with Robbie, he's got his head down and he's charging.
So you see, with 68 laps to go, Gilles de Ferran leads by just under half a second. Ribeiro right behind him, Brazilian, and then we have Jimmy Massa, who won at Miami 2 weeks ago and is leading the championship right now. A great race up front. Gilles de Ferran, that Honda Firestone combination seems to be the one to have this year, and that's a Honda Firestone combination of Ribeiro right behind him. And there you see Mauricio Guzman, very dejected in the top right corner of your picture, as he has stepped out of this race. Brazilian, obviously looking for a good result here, but on to Australia in 2 weeks, and maybe the Pac West team can have a better result there. Mark Blundell, just a reminder, went out with heavy impact early on in this race.
Yeah, not the greatest start to the season for the Pac West team. They weren't that happy with the performance at Homestead near Miami, and now they've lost a chassis completely. I don't think there's any way that one's coming back.
No, that's definitely going to be a case of putting in an order to Europe to get a new one. Here's Gilles de Ferran, Andre Ribeiro, Jimmy Massa. This is a lap car. Here is a rundown of people out of the race. 27 cars started. Jeff Crossmuff is out. Mauricio Guzman, Hiro Matsushita, Stefan Johansson. They switched this year from the old Mercedes Penske setups, and they went to Reynolds to run the Mercedes engines, but they've been struggling with that team for Stefan Johansson once again.
Yeah, the Bettenhausen Alimax sponsored car seems to have had a surprisingly difficult start. Of course, they're quite a small team. We forget that they're only 17 or 18 guys as opposed to the 120 that Pence put into the field. But nevertheless,
About a $2 million budget as opposed to 10 to 12.
yeah, and it would seem that it's going to take a little while for Stefan to get back up there.
Riding on board right now with Bobby Rahal, 3-time PPG IndyCar World Champion. He won the championship 1 year without even winning a race. Consistency, they call him Mr. Consistency, always finishing, and generally in the top 5, and always in the hunt at the end of the points title. Alonso Jr. and Michael Andretti having a good battle right now. This is for 4th position. Alonso Jr. picks it up. Actually, this is for 5th position, pardon me. Alonso Jr. able to get by Michael Andretti in the Penske. Then we have Robbie Gordon, who's dropped back a couple of spots, struggling with that headrest situation and buffeting around his helmet area. Michael Andretti chases Alonso Jr. Tries to get back and get that position back, but no, unable to. Now he'll take a look down the inside this time, and still unable to get by Alonso Jr.
Now, there's still that little bit of cloud up there, and every now and then we wonder if we're not seeing some moisture on the in-car camera lenses, Guy. But I think on the back straight shot, it looks as though we could well run through to the end on a dry race. Don't forget that in Rio, generally by about the middle of the afternoon at this time of year, it starts raining, and they've got to get this race over before that starts happening. We don't run in the wet.
Had trouble, of course, with the race in Miami. Gilles de Ferran, 64 laps to go, pulled out a bit of a lead over the second place car, and then we go back. Moore has dropped back a couple of positions. He's maybe struggling with his car, as they seem to be picking him off fairly easily.
Zanardi's playing it steady. He's not been fazed by the fact that perhaps he got slightly outthought on the pit strategy there. The other 3 got in front of him. He'd been leading steadily. Now he's just got to know that strategy, tactics, fueling will all play its part, and it's not just about getting your head down and charging off into the lead.
And we still have at least one more pit stop to make. Here's Zanardi, Moore. They've been battling all day. Now they're battling further back to 5th and 6th position. Then you see Hunter, Michael Andretti, Robbie Gordon, Bobby Rahal, Paul Tracy, Raul Boesel, and then Parker Johnston as the field makes its way by. There's Emerson Fittipaldi back in the road, Carlos Guerrero, Adrian Fernandez, and right at the back there, Roberto Moreno, who's been struggling all day. There's 8 Brazilians entered in today's race, the only one who actually was born and raised in Rio de Janeiro, riding on board once again with Bobby Rahal. Rahal has, like I said, been consistent, and now we hear that Jimmy Vasher apparently is losing power and slowing down quite slowly.
Yes, and there he goes. And yeah, no, that's just dust on the pit lane. I thought for a moment he'd locked up as he came into the pits. They're refueling him and they're changing his tyres. Now, nobody changed tyres on the last stop, and the interesting thing is that despite the clear superiority of the Firestone tyres at this race, the Goodyears weren't changed either. Now,
I wonder if he maybe picked up a...
I think he must have just picked up, don't you? That's what set him off.
Trying to get out and stay on the lead lap, as here come the leaders, Gilles de Ferran, Andre Ribeiro, and it looks like Vasser was able to get out and stay on the lead lap, which is good news for him. The 30-year-old, of course, with 56 career starts and the win in Miami last week.
And that promotes Zanardi back up to third, and Greg Moore to fourth. And now for the first time we see Raoul Boesel beginning to make a move, and the Brahma-coloured car, very brightly coloured car, no confusing that one, Guy.
Nice paint job on that. They have that beautiful number 1 on there. He's chasing down Paul Tracy, who absolutely dominated at Miami. He was fastest in all the sessions. He had the pole, he led the most laps, and he should really have won it, but he had a transmission problem. So far, not many reports of transmission problems here, and we're expecting quite a few.
We were indeed expecting, after a lot of trouble in practice with various gearbox troubles on all the teams experiencing different sorts of trouble, I think no one was really expecting to have to shift down as low as third, which is what some of them found themselves doing.
We are just over the halfway mark as we continue the 133 lap race, the Rio 400, that's kilometers.
And we've just had confirmation from the pit lane of what I was just saying earlier, which is, as I thought, the pit lane is very slippery, whether that's oil or just, again, lack of use on the circuit, and a lot of dust.
And a totally different surface, of course. You pull off the blacktop onto that concrete, and they tend to slide quite a bit on that, so that could be causing problems in the pit lane. We saw Rahal coming very, very fast earlier, and we also saw that problem with Vassar and Herta almost making contact when they came out of the pit area.
And Juan Fangio, too, in the Toyota before he retired. Similarly, it's a very tight thing.
Vassar's back in the pits. He's obviously got a terminal problem.
It's more than we thought. And what are they looking at there? It looks as though they're worrying about the suspension, maybe. He thought he had a puncture, and maybe there's a problem with the rear suspension. They're going to top up the fuel anyway.
That's disappointing to see for poor Jimmy Vassar. Had a great run for the Target Ganassi team in Miami. His first official win. Of course, he was given the win at Portland last year after finishing second to Alonso Jr. But Alonso Jr.'s result was taken away from a protest. But then at the end of the season, the protest was all taken over and reinstated the win to Alonso Jr. And as Vassar said last week, or 2 weeks ago in Miami, I'd much rather win it for real like I have than be awarded it from the second place finish. Alonso Jr. now getting close to both Greg Moore and Alessandro Zanardi.
Yeah, what Jimmy said was that it was fun to have been awarded the win and to hold it for 5 months, when Al had only led the race for 2 hours, but Al got it back again.
Zanardi still impressing everybody, I think, with his performance here. He's held off Greg Moore all day long. They dropped a couple of positions because they went in the pits, and then Gilles de Ferran and Andre Romero did not, and that's why they're running back here for this position. But Alonso Jr. seems to have been able to catch up with them very, very easily, and now maybe in a situation to put a move on Greg Moore.
And that's a situation that's going to strike a little bit of fear into any rookie's heart, to see those well-known colours and that well-known helmet bearing down on you on an oval. Alonso Jr.
doesn't seem very fazed by the whole thing. In an interview in Miami, he was just over the top with himself about how he'd come in and how he'd proved himself. And he hadn't won 12 races in Indy Lights because he was no good, and he was quite happy to run with these guys.
He's a very confident young man. He's only 20 years old, but it has to be said that confidence should not be confused for brashness. He's not someone who's going to go and throw the car away. He's a consistent finisher throughout his career so far, and it's been very, very impressive. Running fourth here and looking strong. But as I say, just got to be a little bit nervous about having little Al right there behind him.
Well, at the same time, he's trying to get by Alessandro Zanardi. He's going to keep an eye on his wing mirrors, because before he knows it, Al Jr. will pop by him, pick up that position, the fifth place position. Jr. in sixth, Michael Andretti running in seventh, and he has lost contact with these three and dropped a little bit off the pace, a little bit further back.
It's nice to see Al coming up through the field, isn't it, Guy? I think we can safely say that this year's Penske is probably a rather happier car after the demonstration by Tracy at Homestead, rather a happier car on the ovals than last year's Penske, which included that disastrous failure to qualify for the Indy 500.
Yeah, they had a really rough start to the 1995 season, and they came on strong towards the end, and Alonso Jr. actually, having been reinstated that win at Portland, got very close to winning the championship, but they did struggle. This year they've come on and exploded with Paul Tracy at Miami, doing very, very well. The one guy that's struggling is Emerson Fittipaldi in the Rahal Penske engine car, the Hogan Penske engine car. Carl Hogan taking over the operation of just that one car, and Emma not had a good run at Miami, and certainly not had a good run here in this big hometown event here put on.
And that's a nice move, exactly as we were saying. Greg Moore does the smart thing and says, okay, master, I'll follow you. And there he is. He's not going to lose that toe, and he's a brave young man too, but there he is, and he's back. I think he's going to do it.
Alonso Jr. wasn't like that, but he just went straight back by him. That's amazing. He just went straight back by him there on that situation. He, as we talked about keeping your eye on the mirrors. Alex went by. Greg Moore said, no, I'm not having that. They went right back by him.
That was a beautiful move because he went straight back into his slipstream, got the toe, broke the toe, popped out, and away he went.
It's actually
nice move.
Distance now. Juan Manuel Fangio doing a very good job of keeping his eye on his mirrors, and he moves aside and lets those three by. Here's Gilles de Ferran, our leader, Andre Ribeiro, right behind him. Oh, de Ferran's got a problem. And Ribeiro picks up the lead. Oh no, he didn't pit. I wonder if he has a fuel problem, maybe.
What a disappointment there, all streaming by him now. There are not a lot of lucky Brazilians out there today. Emerson's trouble. I can't see anything wrong on that car there, can you?
I don't see anything wrong, but like I say, maybe he didn't. Well, we know he didn't stop. Maybe he should have done and come and get some fuel.
He's shaking his head.
Are all different this weekend. Normally they figure out for a 1 mile or a 1.5 mile over. Here's Ribeiro diving into the pits under a yellow flag situation. Make sure he contains that 80-mile-an-hour speed limit. Brian Herter follows it in.
Well, Andre finds himself rather unexpectedly in the lead, and he's got to hope that the luck of the Brazilians.
Now, all the guys that did go in last time, Zanardi, Greg Moore, etc., will stay.
Back to the IndyCar Series, live with Husqvarna, Forest and Garden.
Welcome back to the inaugural Rio 400. James Allen, Guy Hobbs and Christopher Tate with you. And that was the erstwhile leader, Gilles de Ferran, but we think he ran out of fuel. Just tried to leave it a little bit too long on this economy strategy that he was running, which is what put him in the lead. The early running made by Alex Zanardi and this man here, Greg Moore. But when Zanardi and Moore pitted for the last yellow, de Ferran stayed out, so did Andre Ribeiro. And now de Ferran paid the price by coming in for fuel. Now, at the yellow flag for de Ferran slowing down, Zanardi nipped into the pits as well. And that's why Moore is now the car which the pace car has picked up, and he is the current leader. Now, if you look back as the stream of cars coming through, not yet in your screens, there, top screen, red car with a white helmet, now in the middle of your screen, that is Alex Zanardi. Now, I didn't see him come into the pits, but I'm pretty sure that that's the reason why he's gone from being at the front to being at the back. He's come in for a splash and dash, possibly slightly longer than a splash and dash. And of course, this kind of race is all about pit strategy. It's all about being smart, being clever, and reading the yellow flags. And you need the man in the pits, the man who's talking into your ear down the radio to tell you what to do to make the calls. But as they go green now, 20-year-old Greg Moore, IndyCar rookie, leads an IndyCar race for the very first time in his career, and I'm sure it won't be the last time. Just look at the pace of this young man, the second youngest man ever to start an IndyCar race, and around the outside of Michael Andretti goes Robbie Gordon. Let's rejoin our commentators in Brazil.
Robbie, and then Bobby Rahal and Raul Boesel all right there behind him, and this young 20-year-old Canadian has just set off into the distance again.
And the amazing thing about Greg Moore is he may be mistaken in the fact that the colours, the player sponsorship, it's not Team Green, it's not the team that won the championship last year. This is the Forsyth team which struggled with Teo Fabi all of last year. He's been able to step in the car and lead at Miami, and now lead here also at Rio. Rahal continuing to chase down Robbie Gordon. They had a great finish at Miami last week between Gordon, Rahal and Pruitt. Pruitt kind of out of it a bit today, but now we also see that Raul Boesel has been able to weasel his way back into the field, and right behind him, I believe we have Parker Johnson. We do. It's a great run for him in the Honda. Unable to make the race in Miami, disappointingly for him after a crash. Oh, we've got a blown motor on. Locked up.
We have got a blown motor on.
Michael
Andretti's Newman Haas car. And out comes the hand. He's got to try and get out of the traffic there, and he can. He can dive across into the pit lane and get out of the way.
Well, it happened at the right spot for him, that's for sure.
Yeah, but poor Michael, there he is. He's finally popped his way up through the field. He finds himself sitting strongly in second there, and that is a crew that is not very happy. They're not rushing at this one.
Oh, we talked about Brian Miles, who's been here. He is on that Newman Haas team, and Michael's getting out of the car right away. There's no chance that is going to be fixed or solved. He is out of this one. We'll have a full course yellow, just so they can inspect the track to make sure he didn't put a ton of oil down. But a disappointing day for Michael Andretti here in Rio. Not a good start to the season for him so far.
Well, what can we say? It sounds rather there as though the pace of trying to keep up with the Hondas may well have made life a little bit circuit there. Interesting to see that stop.
And he's able to get out ahead of Adrian Fernandez. They are under yellow. Of course, in the IndyCar, you blend in, you blend line, but it's not, you pull in where you can. It's not mandatory for Fernandez to let him in. And you can pull out, and although you're in line with Fernandez, say, hey, I was in line, he should let me in. No, if you can get in, you get in. But most of the time, they'll just go right by you, and you'll end up going all the way to the back of the pack. Fangio continues to be out there, and the Toyota, I think at this point, pretty much a development test session for the Toyotas. The All-American racers, Dan Gurney Eagles, of course, they did brilliantly in the IMSA series. They won 2 championships. They cleaned up on all points. They're going to be adding a second car later in the season for PJ Jones when he gets in, probably around about Long Beach or further down the road. Here we see the field lined up behind the pace car. Greg Moore leads, Bobby Rahal is second, Parker Johnson is third, Raul Boesel is fourth, and then Jimmy Vasser in fifth. Michael Andretti is out. We'll be back in just a moment.
Back to the IndyCar Series, live with Valvoline Motor Oil.
You're back live with the Rio 400. We've just gone green, and they're going into turn 2. Greg Moore leads from Bobby Rahal. Parker Johnstone is third. Raul Boesel is fourth. And Christian Fittipaldi in the Newman Haas Ford is up into 5th place after 88 of 133 laps of this Rio Oval. And Greg Moore, well, what a fantastic performance we've seen from him today. The reason why we had that yellow flag, of course, just to remind you, anybody who's just joined us, is that Michael Andretti blew up. Now, it's not the first time he's had a problem with the new Ford XD engine. He had a big boost problem on Friday, and that stranded him out on the circuit. And I can tell you something which not an awful lot of people know, and that is that at Homestead, he is very suspicious of this Ford XD engine. He doesn't believe that it's truly reliable. They've had quite a lot of reliability problems with it. Christian Fittipaldi also had problems, and at Homestead, he actually raced the XB, the older engine, which has got less power, less high revving, and all the rest of it. But being so distrustful is he of the new XD that he decided to run the XB engine. That's from my spies over in the States. So it'll be very interesting to see which engine he was running today, whether it was the XD or the XB, because the XD supposedly revving higher, giving more power. It's Ford's response to the increased power which the Honda seems to have found. And although the top 3 at the moment doesn't reflect Honda supremacy, with Parker Johnstone in 3rd place, the highest Honda runner, throughout the whole weekend here at Rio, we've seen Honda supremacy with Zanardi, De Ferran and Vasser and Ribeiro consistently the fastest runners in every single session. Zanardi actually the fastest in every session, and all of those guys running Honda engines. Right now we've got a Mercedes 1-2 with Moore out front and Bobby Rahal in 2nd place. Both those guys using Mercedes engines, and Raul Boesel using a Ford engine, and he's in 4th place. And in 5th place we have Christian Fittipaldi also with a Ford engine. So watch out for Al Unser Jr. with the Mercedes. Very, very strong towards the end of every race. And Unser Jr. we saw having a terrific tussle with Michael Andretti just before Andretti blew up. And never discount Al Unser Jr., especially as you get into the final third of a race, and certainly never discount him on an oval. Been a very eventful race. 5 yellow flags so far, 1 long one because of the enormous accident in turn 4 to Mark Blundell. Anybody who's just joined us, I can tell you he had a huge impact with the wall on the outside of turn 4. But the latest news that we have from the hospital in Rio de Janeiro is that Mark is sitting up. He's able to talk. He has no injuries, repeat, no injuries, nothing broken. And he says that, well, quite simply, his brakes went away from him. We saw him locking up as he came into turn 4, clouting into that wall, but he said it was a braking problem that caused the accident. And really, well, what can you say? Just testament to the strength of these Indy cars. The Reynard chassis, which Blundell driving, he hit the wall one mighty thwack. And, well, he's very, very lucky to be walking around and talking at all. Greg Moore leads this race then from Bobby Rahal, Parker Johnstone, Raul Boesel in 4th place with Christian Fittipaldi down in 5th. 38 laps to go of this 1.8-mile oval. And bad news for Jimmy Vasser, down in 16th place, 2 laps down. And he was very strong in the first half of this event. but coming off the back of that fantastic win at Homestead. And in fact, it's worth remembering that he had a tremendous amount of momentum generally going into this 96 season. 91 points he scored in the second half of last season, and that's the third most that anyone scored in the second half of last season. And that momentum been building tremendously within the Chip Ganassi organisation. Ganassi deciding to switch to Honda engines over the winter would seem at the moment to have been the right decision to make. And Vassar winning the first race, but unlucky in this race. Obviously some problem either with tyres or rear suspension, causing him some problems. Also great to see, and that's a fire, that's Carlos Guerrero, and he has a fire, probably an oil fire, but it's set light to the bodywork. Obviously carbon fibre bodywork with the paint on it gets very, very hot and often catches fire. Greg Moore, absolutely fantastic scrap with Alonso Jr. Our commentator in the States said maybe he was following the master, but I don't buy that. I think this man, Greg Moore, is a great star, not frightened of anybody. Take a quick commercial break. We'll be back.
To the IndyCar Series, live with Bridgestone, the science of performance.
You're back at the IndyCar race in Rio, and we've had some serious chaos going on in the pits. That yellow flag for Carlos Guerrero's fire. Just watch this. Greg Moore comes in the lead. There's Rahal comes in third place. Now, just watch the tyre man back right of Moore's car. Oh, well, they're not going to show it to us. It's very unfortunate because what happened was the tyre man left that tyre there. Rahal couldn't get out because the tyre was blocking him, so he kind of jammed around and tried to get out, and in fact took one of his own tyre men with him. Actually ran him over. The guy just managed to get out of his way, but he did clip him and knocked him flying because it was a serious rush to get out of the pits. It's the guy now on the front right of Rahal's car. He was the guy that got clipped. Maybe they'll show it all to us now. There you can see the tyres going down. Now you can see the angle that Rahal has to go out. Very unfortunate. Maybe we see it now from Rahal's on board. In he comes. Look at the funny angle that Greg Moore's got himself in at, such as the tension, the pressure, the adrenaline that's rushing through the veins of this young man, only 20 years old and leading an IndyCar race, only the second round of the championship. Now just watch this. Look at the tyre in front of Rahal now. He won't be able to get out because of the angle of that, and so he'll run into it, as you see, and as he tries to move it out of the way, a guy runs in front of him and he clipped him and knocked him over. Anyway, a little bit of entertainment over. The guy looks as though he probably wasn't unhurt. We've gone green, and I can tell you that Alex Zanardi is back in the lead from Gilles de Ferran. And then I've got, well, I had Ribeiro in third place, but it looks like he's been dropped coming out of turn 4. And, well, we'll wait to see a leaderboard, but it looks to me as though Vassar may have, oh no, Vassar's down 2 laps. So in fact, Greg Moore is well up there, and so Ribeiro has dropped a couple of places. But there's no question that leading is Zanardi, second is de Ferran. Well up there also is Robbie Gordon, who's been having problems all race long with his headrest. It's been bobbling about behind his head and driving him absolutely nuts. No, in fact, Ribeiro is in fact ahead of Moore, and a real scrum as they go into turn 4. Moore makes a move down the inside on Ribeiro. Has he got the grunt? The Honda on the left, the Mercedes on the right. Look at that, you see. Absolutely extraordinary. He had a perfect draft coming out of 4. Now he tries the outside. Oh my word. This man has some serious courage. We saw him make moves in Homestead that we haven't seen in an IndyCar race for years. He just doesn't seem to understand that there's a rule book, and there are certain moves you make and certain moves you don't make. He's got enormous courage, and there's someone just getting a little bit wide. Didn't see it. Looked a bit like the Brahma Sports entry of Raul Boesel. Obviously getting a little bit wide, running a bit slow, and we can see it again. Oh, we got a tangle, in fact. Yes, it's, oh, I didn't see who that was, but looked like Unser Jr. involved in that as well. A little bit of a spin. Here we have it possibly from Christian Fittipaldi's onboard camera. Tracy, in fact, spinning around Marco Greco. Well, not often you find Christian Fittipaldi and Paul Tracy racing around in the company of Marco Greco. Presumably Greco several laps down and a mobile chicane, as he usually is in these IndyCar races. But it's brought out a yellow, and that has brought Zanardi in. Now, Zanardi gets out first ahead of de Ferran. Looks like they're the only two to have pitted. Terribly confusing, all the different pit strategies. But Zanardi, of course, stayed out that last time, and that's how he was able to stay in the lead. He's been playing his own game. A lot of people have been pitting at the same time, but Zanardi's been playing a very cagey game, of course, entirely dictated by the strategist in the pits, the Ganassi team strategist, and this year for the first time the teams all have spotters around the circuit looking out for debris, looking out for track positioning. So if a yellow is thrown, they can make an instant evaluation as to where the principal rivals are, whether or not it's time to make a splash and dash stop. They all have the laptops in front of them telling them how much fuel there is available, and really this just gives you an idea of what a team sport IndyCar racing is, because you have to really rely on the strategists in your team, the whole team effort, the mechanics to get you out there quickly. And I think this is probably going to be a rerun of the Tracy Greco incident. Yeah, Tracy coming up, tremendous speed behind Greco, possibly not realizing that he was a back marker, but Fittipaldi down the inside, and it looks like it was Christian Fittipaldi that Tracy was trying to lap. Now, this is going to be it from another angle. Yeah, a full 360 for Greco. Looks like he gets it going without clouting the wall, and that's what brought out briefly the yellow flag. And there is Paul Tracy out of the race. So for the second race in succession, Tracy not scoring any points. The recently goatee-bearded Paul Tracy, and certainly one of the pace setters at Homestead, qualified very, very strongly on pole position, ran away with it in the early stages before retiring with a mechanical failure. And he's knocked his nose cone off in that impact with Greco, and I would think he'd have some fairly interestingly strong things to say. Whether or not he'd take the blame for that accident, I really don't know. Anyway, it's brought out our seventh, I beg your pardon, yellow of the race. And where is Alex Zanardi in this lot? Looks like he's towards the back as they're prepared to go green again. Vassar leads them round.
As a result, Ribero's going for the line.
Looks like Ribero maybe able to put it off. I was calling Vassar because I believe Vassar was a lap down after those problems earlier and is trying now to stay on that lead lap. Here's Robbie Gordon, head getting buffeted without that headrest, and he is chasing now Greg Moore and Ribero. So Gordon's obviously had a little problem after that restart. You mentioned he got sideways, lost momentum. Moore and Ribero both able to go by, and right behind Gordon now is Raul Boesel. Oh, Ribero takes a very, very wide line.
He's done it again, guys. Done it again. He's having trouble with that corner all through the weekend. Andre's wing settings must be very marginal for the grip on that corner.
Here you see Moore over Ribero, Gordon, and right behind Gordon we now have Scott Pruitt. Here's Raul Boesel with a battle of Allison Jr. and Bobby Rahal. And Boesel holding off Rahal.
That will give him some satisfaction. There was not a great deal of love lost when these two parted company at the end of last year. Boesel having been effectively number 2 to Rahal through last year, which wasn't quite his understanding when he signed at the beginning of the year.
I don't think he really got the equipment either, because everybody said when Boesel went to race with Bobby Rahal, while Boesel obviously out-qualified and being quicker and quicker, but he never really was. Rahal was always quicker than Boesel. I just don't think Boesel was getting the equipment. 28 laps to go. Greg Moore, the young 20-year-old, leads it, and then we have Gordon, Ribero, and then back to Boesel. There's a good battle here between Rahal and Boesel, and Alonso Jr., and that's Christian Fittipaldi right behind them.
Among others we want to keep an eye out for is Pruitt, who's still there, very much there, lying in 5th place.
Certainly hanging in. There's Ribero, there's Gordon. Back to Pruitt, Boesel, Rahal, Alonso Jr., Christian Fittipaldi. Great battle going on up front. Oh, and Boesel goes very wide on that same turn.
It's the big test, isn't it? That's the one that appears to be really sorting them out at the moment. It's very, very difficult to optimise the setting of brakes, wing, and which gear you're in, and it's played against Raul there. And there he goes, Bobby up the inside. No.
Oh, it looked like Rahal was going to be able to get him.
Nice move. And meanwhile, around the outside, and no hanging around comes Lau.
Alonso Jr. able to pick up that position while Bobby Rahal thought he was battling with Raul Boesel. Meantime, Alonso Jr. goes by. Now Rahal's got Christian Fittipaldi all over his mirrors. Here we ride on board with Bobby Rahal. Alonso Jr. right in front of him, and in front of him, Raul Boesel.
Now that's interesting, that guy. I think we're seeing Rahal's losing time. I think he's beginning to develop a push at the front there. His front end's just sliding a little bit away from him, and the others are pulling away from him. Maybe they fiddled with the settings disadvantageously at the last stop, but it didn't look too clever through the corners there. And certainly that would explain why Al was able to come past him so easily.
And Ribero and Moore seem to have gone away from the rest of the field, and in fact get by. Let's take a look at the replay. On the inside is Alonso Jr. Trying to block him is Raul Boesel. Coming in, locks it up the right front in particular. Oh, and then Unser sees the smoke, dives down the inside, takes over the position, as does Bobby Rahal. Here, though, is Greg Moore, our leader, with approximately 20 laps to go. Could become the youngest guy in history of IndyCars to win a race. Not quite the youngest to start. Alonso Jr. has that record, but he could be the youngest guy to win the race, winning it so early in the season as well. Moore, followed by Rivera. They have left the rest of the pack way behind. There you see the pack. Gordon, once again, trying to break the grass. Scott Pruitt behind him. Now Alonso Jr. on his tail. Bobby Rahal, Christian Fittipaldi, Raul Boesel, and Martin Johnson.
That late braking incident really did cost Raul Boesel a lot of places there. He dropped 3 places, and that just shows how tight it all is here. You simply can't afford to make a mistake like that.
3 places at this time would be 6 points he's dropped from that. Actually, it would be 8 points he would have dropped from that. Pruitt now trying to hold off Al Unser Jr. with about 20 laps to go here at the Rio 400 kilometers, 250 miles, or 133 laps of this 1.868 mile track, or if you like, 3 kilometers.
I think it's easier with the 3 kilometers, don't you?
I think so, especially back to our European transmissions as we go internationally with the broadcast of the entire IndyCar World Series for you here on ESPN. Pruitt still continuing to battle with Al Unser Jr. Al Unser Jr. trying to get some points for the championship. Rahal right behind him. Christian Fittipaldi started at the very back of the pack as he had no qualifying time because of the crash on Saturday morning. There you see Gordon weaving, trying to break that draft again. Pruitt right behind him. Gordon, Pruitt and Al Unser Jr. all race super speedways in the IROC Championship. That may actually benefit them just a little bit in this series.
And we'd almost forgotten Andre Ribeiro, who's driven a great race from the beginning of the day. And he's behind Moore and probably a little bit out of touch with Moore, but he's well clear of this squabbling bunch here. And what a bunch, and what a load of experience in those 5 cars.
And the two of them started in the second row, Moore and Rivera, but they're both running up 1 and 2 right now as we get down to the closing segment of the Rio 400 from the Emerson Fittipaldi Speedway, where they expected a crowd of around 150,000 people today. 89% humidity, very high temperatures, very rough wear and tear on the car, and particularly on the drivers. Although they've been helped a little bit by the amount of yellows we've had. We've had 7 yellow flags today.
They have had a chance for some breathers, Guy, yeah, but basically the cockpit temperatures are very, very high today, and they weren't a bit used to that. Spring training at Homestead near Miami was quite cool, and as we know, unfortunately, the race at Miami was not only cool, but occasionally wet, and these guys have come down from not-so-sunny northern climes, including most of the Brazilians.
Here you see Greg Moore, the 20-year-old Canadian, and he is trying to get by Jimmy Vasser and put Jimmy another lap down. Jimmy, of course, won at Miami. Greg Moore may have had a problem. Let's take a look at a replay of the situation. He got squiffy and sideways, and the right rear makes contact with the wall. He's had to come. He slowed way down. Oh no, tough day for Greg Moore.
Can you believe the Canadian luck? This is just what we were saying we hoped wouldn't happen after Moore's great run, and I'm afraid that was a mistake of his own making. He was just a little bit too close behind Vasser. He lost a little bit of downforce, and there on the outside tapped the wall, and that appears to have done the suspension in.
In Miami 2 weeks ago, he basically lost a race for a black flag penalty because he had the dominant car. Now, dominant car again, he's going to lose this race because of slight contact with the wall. We've seen guys make that kind of contact before and even be able to continue. Nigel Mansell, a good example a couple of years ago. But now, Ribeiro, about a 1.6 second lead over the rest of the field. This is about a second. Gordon, Unser, Rahal, Pruitt, Christian Fittipaldi, and they're all battling for that second position. Yet it's a local yellow, not a full course yellow, as Greg Moore works his way back to the pits. So here comes Junior taking a look down the inside of Robbie Gordon. Pruitt, Fittipaldi changing positions too.
Fittipaldi looks pretty strong to me.
They've made it a full course
now
yellow.
gone full course yellow. I was just about to say we've actually got a recovery vehicle on the track. I think we must go back and just run over the sand. It's there for poor old Greg Moore.
I think they were hoping Greg Moore would be able to coast back to the pit lane. I don't think he was able to make it, so they sent the safety truck out and tow him back in.
And that's the way it is. And what must be going on inside that young man's head, I don't know. And look at the disappointment.
Jerry Forsyth team are just totally disappointed after that. They really, as we say, should have, could have won at Miami, because how many times to say that? But now here, Greg Moore, definitely the dominant car. The Mercedes, the Reynard, the Firestone, running terrifically all day. Started on the second row, seemed to be very, very comfortable in up front.
There appears to be very little damage, to the rear of the car, but it was obviously just enough, and it may have cracked a drive shaft or bent a suspension arm. I think that's what we're looking. Yep, I think that's what we're looking at.
The tyre hasn't even deflated, as you can see.
I think we're looking at a bent suspension arm. He carried on, and he looked for a moment as though he's going to do what he set out to do, which was to get past Vassar, but there was no carrying on.
We're going to have about 17 laps to go, Christopher, here at Rio. You see one more lap till we go green again. But how about this? That big lead Ribeiro had at that point is now going to totally close up because of the yellow flag situation. So therefore, Gordon, Hunter, all those guys are going to be incredibly close for the restart, and it's going to be a great dash for the cash here at the end of the Rio 400 in Rio de Janeiro. When we talk about Rio de Janeiro in South America, our next stop is going to be over in Australia, the Indycar Grand Prix, and that's going to be in 2 weeks from now, live on ESPN. Of course, a temporary road course. Here are the times, the listings. You'll see it in your country, but Australia coming up in 2 weeks, and then 3 weeks after that we'll have Nazareth and Long Beach, but covering the racing all day. Parker Johnston has had a problem out on the track, so it looked like we were going to go back to green flag, but no, we're not now. We saw just before that Greg Moore getting out of the car, and the crew, I mean, what do you say to a guy after such a great performance like that and then to break down? So I don't think he's going to want to talk to anybody particularly.
It's interesting that the guy he's talking to is the Mercedes-Benz senior engineer, and it may well be that he did get away with that tap of the wall, but what caused the problem was his motor going away.
Which is why he probably tapped the wall to start with. There you see Brazilian television doing the live coverage for Brazil, and they are talking to Andre Ribeiro's parents, who leads this race with just over 10 or so laps to go. Going to be a dramatic finish.
Now, we know that on an oval, the yellows work with you and against you, as Mary always used to say. Through the season, in the end, it all evens out. But poor old Andre at the moment, guy, you've got to admit, he got himself a clean break. He worked his way into a nice steady position. Moore was up there, and Moore goes away. Andre thinks to himself, that's great. And now suddenly here he is, about to get jumped by a huge pack of very hungry hunters.
Andre Ribeiro, just 30 years old, has 18 career starts, and of course that one win coming at Loudon, New Hampshire last year, 1995. This could be a great result for him to be able to pick up a second one. Robbie Gordon had a great run third at Miami, now to finish second here or possibly even win this one will certainly boost his chances in the championship this year as he runs with the Walker Motorsports entry.
But you've got to expect that he's going to not find the same sort of punch away from the restart as I think we're going to find Ribeiro with the Honda power. I think we've seen that through the race, and we're going to see it in just a few minutes, as long as our...
So we're entering the final stages now, 119 of 133 laps down. Ribeiro leads from Gordon, and Pruitt very strong as well. De Ferran's still there, Rahal still there, Christian Fittipaldi still there, and we really are set for a grandstand finish. You thought Homestead was close, you thought Melbourne, the F1 race, was close. You ain't seen nothing like the last 18 laps of this race are going to be as soon as this track goes green. Just look at that. Ribeiro has Gordon, Unser Jr. right behind him. 1 lap to go. After this one, lights will go out on the pace car, and then we will go green for the final sprint to the flag. And let's just look at that experience, that wealth of experience. Bobby Rahal there in 4th place, Scott Pruitt 5th. And we've got Raul Bozal, who dropped down after that late braking maneuver, and right behind him is Alex Zanardi. And Zanardi led most of this race. He led almost to half distance, in fact, but he's just been caught out by some unfortunate fuel windows, some yellow flag periods. We've had 7 yellow flag periods, and he looked to have read them all right. It's such a lottery. Sometimes it goes with you, sometimes it goes against you, and really luck plays a big part in it. But today, perhaps for Zanardi, luck has not been on his side, but it's not all over yet. He can still make it up from, well, I've got him down in 9th place now, following retirement of Moore. We'll wait and see on the leaderboard whether that is accurate. But who'd want to be in Andre Ribeiro's shoes when this track goes green? Reasonable amount of experience now on ovals, did 1 season last year, won the race at New Hampshire after sticking the car on pole position, and he had to lead off that turn 4 and into down the main straightaway through the green flag, which is one of the most difficult things to do for someone who's new to IndyCar racing. The field will bunch up, they will drop the pace car, which will try and get as far as it can. There you go, he hits the gas. Ribeiro accelerates hard. Gordon's after him. Now remember, Gordon's driving without a headrest, which flew off earlier in this. Oh, Ribeiro gets very pear-shaped through that corner. And look at little Al.
Gordon, Pruitt and Rahal all in the great battle at the end of Miami 2 weeks ago. Oh, Alonso Jr. unable to get by Robbie Gordon. I think in the meantime, while these guys all battle it out, we're going to see Ribeiro disappear.
Yep, he's made a bit of a jump already. And I'm not so sure that Al was that impressed by that move by Robbie there. The one thing we mustn't also forget is poor Parker Johnson. We don't know what the trouble was there. We still haven't got word back down the pit lane. But it would seem that something completely terminal, as the car just stopped in the middle of the corner when we were running under the yellow there, caused by the loss of Greg Moore.
Ribeiro has pulled out quite a lead over the remaining field. Robbie Gordon in second and 12 laps to go as Gordon is being hounded by Alonso Jr. Pruitt and Rahal side by side as they come down. Christian Fittipaldi right behind them. Then round Bursell, and I believe Alessandro Zanardi right behind Bursell.
Well, it's good to see Zanardi's made himself a bit of a comeback because he did so much work to lead from the front through the beginning of this race.
I think he must have led the most laps at least, so we'll definitely get 1 point for doing that, and of course a point for taking the pole position.
Well, he certainly has, because since he dropped back, it's been all chop and change.
Moore and Ribeiro and Gordon taking their turns in leading.
Al is still looking for something on the inside of Gordon there, and that's getting tense. But as you said, while this is happening, the crowd's going wild. You can see all the hats throwing.
The Brazilian crowd is going wild, absolutely, for their Brazilian guy.
And Andre has got to hope now that he can just hang on there for these next 10 laps and repeat his tremendous first ever Honda IndyCar win of New Hampshire last year.
Andre, of course, not from Rio de Janeiro, listing to Sao Paulo, his home. But even so, the Brazilian fans love a Brazilian to win the first race ever in Brazil for the IndyCar.
Yeah, I think this is one of the instances where the people who live in Rio, known as the Cariocas, will let the Paulistas have their own national cheers, because that's more important than letting somebody else win.
Christian Fittipaldi able to pick up a position over Bobby Rahal as we have 10 laps remaining. Gordon now still chasing as Unser was able to get by him. Unser's actually pulled out a bit of room.
Christian's looked very strong these last few laps, and he's jumped in, and there
position, now losing a third position. Gordon must have a problem. Oh, he's locked up the left front.
locked up, and we're into the wall, so we're going to have a yellow. And so Ribeiro's big build-up lead is going to fade away, and Gordon's obviously fine. He's going to be very cross with himself indeed. Yep, disgusted, throwing away bits and pieces. That's a big smack.
Well, and he was losing power. He was getting overtaken fairly easily by most of the guys. Obviously something wrong. At that point, you don't try and win the race. You go for championship points. But Gordon, of course, very aggressive. No one will slow him down. And I think he'll just say he was trying to maintain position. And then that's what happened. You'll see it here on the replay on board with Robbie. He's just trying to stay in contact. Pruitt goes by.
Yeah.
So he's lost 3 positions at this point. And then now we can see that Christian Fittipaldi is going to have a look down the inside. And then that's when he locks it up, the left front in particular. He's drifting over to the inside. He's going to drift wide again here to the right. And then here, under braking, just locks it up and heavy contact with the wall.
Well, I'm not even sure he locked it up there, guy. Do you know what? I think he moved over to give Christian a little bit of room, found himself on the marbles. There are a lot of marbles been thrown away, what we call that, the spin-off from the edge of those tyres, and a lot of dirt on a new track, and he found himself, look, with no grip plus a locked inside. And I'm afraid that's always going to send you into the wall.
We talked about it at the top of the show, Christopher, that wear on the brakes will be pretty serious here for an oval compared to what we're used to running. Never normally change down, and certainly never heavy braking on an oval. But Gordon...
Yeah, Robbie knows it's happening. Look, you can see he's desperately trying to fight it away, but they're running so little wing.
And there you see there's brand new side pods really assisting. There you see Robbie Gordon acknowledging the crowd, doesn't know what happened, but that side pod there stopping that front wheel intrusion into the cockpit of the car. An unfortunate day for Robbie Gordon, but he will be back in a couple of weeks when we go to Australia. In fact, a bad weekend for Walker Motorsports. Of course, Scott Goodyear is listening to this race at the hotel, at the hospital Rio Mar on the radio. And we wish Scott Goodyear, who in fact called the Australia race for me last year, the fastest recovery, and hope to see him back out in racing. They say 6 to 8 weeks. Gordon obviously is fine. His car is going to take a lot of work. They're going to go to Australia. Different cars, of course, go to Australia. We're not talking an oval there. We're talking just over a 2-mile road course, temporary road course, totally different setups. But no points for this man, Robbie Gordon, today. It's going to take him a while to clean up this mess.
Yes, it certainly is, and that's going to make life very interesting at the end. The Brazilian crowd guy may not be used to seeing yellow flag racing, but that's not what happens in Formula One, and that's what they've seen of top-level international motorsport before. But but they'll certainly see what he can do to make for an exciting run.
Now, Robbie, you see him there giving a thumbs up to the rest of the guys. I don't know, is he suggesting that maybe he was pushed out onto the marbles? I
think he's just wanting to let them know he's been all right. They've had one or two frights this weekend. We were just saying we wish Scott Goodyear well. He gave everyone a fright. That was a nasty accident. Landell's accident was a nasty accident, and I think Robbie May just wanted to come out and say to all the guys, it's a very close community. Here we go. Listen to that crowd. The Brazilian crowd now are watching Andre Ribeiro. They'll be hoping and praying that he can hold on to now what is, I'm afraid, a very short lead.
They call his car the cholesterol car with all those sponsors, the Tang and many South American food sponsors on there. Do you think they may be up in their cholesterol intake tonight if they win this one in Brazil?
I think there may be just a few caipirinhas going down the throat there in Rio.
You know, when he won at Loudon in New Hampshire, it's the first win he'd had in IndyCar, and the winning podium was right behind our announce booth. And I tell you, Ribeiro, all the cameramen are gone, all the photographers are gone, the sponsors are gone, the hats are gone. He didn't want to leave the victory podium. He just absolutely loved that victory. And if he should win here today in Brazil, you know he's going to be fighting with these guys for a long, long time.
It's taking a long time to clear up that mess, and the Sambas are going to start beginning fairly soon. We hope that it's not going to be one under yellow, because that would be a shame when we got a chance for a great conclusion here. But the crowd are on their feet, and every time he comes by, look at that audience reaction. Wouldn't that be great to have that sort of support?
At the time of the crash, there was 10 laps to go, so if it maybe takes them 5, then what they'll do is instruct the pace car to slow down, slower than normal, give them time to clean it up. So they maybe have 5 laps of cleanup, and then maybe we'll get 4 or 5 laps of green flag racing in. But so far we've seen that Honda Firestone combination seems to be able to pull away from the field. 7 laps to go, so maybe they can get it cleaned up this lap, one more lap by under the yellow.
Giving us 5 for a shot.
Give us 5 for a run to the money. Alan, very unusual.
Very unusual also to note the European style and South American style course car we have here. That's an Opel Vectra, rather than the one we're used to seeing on American ovals, which will generally be one of the faster American sports cars, a Corvette typically.
And of course the Mercedes, the official car of the PPG IndyCar World Series, now they've come on board. They've also denied a rumour that was put out this week that they were going to go and put their support to the IRL, the Indy Racing League, Tony George's sanctioning body. They said no, they're staying with IndyCar. They've got this cleaned up. They're just going to blow that quick dry away, and we should have probably 5 laps of racing here, or maybe 4 laps of racing here at Rio to conclude the Rio 400. Unbelievable run. Let's take a look at the field as they come by. Ribeiro is our leader. Alonso Jr., having put the move on Gordon earlier, has picked up the 2nd position. Scott Pruitt 3rd, Christian Fittipaldi 4th, Bobby Rahal 5th. Jimmy Vasser in that 6th position, but I believe is a lap down. Raul Boesel, Gilles de Ferran, Brian Herter. This is the running order. There's Emerson Fittipaldi, and Zanardi's way back up in there too. So a good run for Zanardi. I think I had Zanardi and Vasser the wrong way around.
Very easy to do. Those two cars are very, very similar indeed. Yeah, it looks as though Zanardi has got his way back up there again, and he may well be in a position to make a jump as well. He was very hot away from some restarts earlier on when he was leading, wasn't he? That surprised us. We didn't think he'd have that experience. They've got the hand blowers on now, trying to get rid of the quick dry there that's gone on the oil. A lot of oil spilled from Gordon's car when he smacked into it, but they're calling the marshals away. They're very keen to let us have a finish under green.
You know who's
and there's bits of debris all over the place. That's going to cause another problem. That's a shame. We thought we were going to go straight back to
they
green.
may pick it up on their way back. Oh, looks like a truck almost ran it over there, but someone needs to pick that up so we can get this restarted. This is really going to favour in the points Pruitt and Christian Fittipaldi and Bobby Rahal, because those guys all had good finishes at Miami.
Yes, Zanardi is up there 6th indeed. You were quite right, Guy. And Raul Boesel still in there with a chance in that brightly coloured white, orange and red Brahma car. We can see there just briefly in the cockpit of Robbie Gordon's car what it was that was causing it there. You see how the headrest was all twisted round? That's what's been causing him the trouble all through the race. But I don't think he's going to offer that as an excuse.
Well, no, it didn't seem to affect him too much. Obviously it bothered him because we saw him fiddling with it a lot. But the big thing that's bothering him right now is that contact with the wall and the fact that he could have picked up about 16 very valuable points for the championship. We are looking at, how about that, we've said started way at the back, now all the way at the 4th, Christian Fittipaldi. As we see the rest of the field, a lot of these guys are a lap or 2 down. There's 8 cars on the lead, there's 7 cars on the lead lap.
Yeah. Yes, race. I mean, looking further back, there are unusually a lot of people still running there who really are a long way out of the picture, including Juan Fangio in the sort of extended test session with the Toyota. Emerson out there, as we were saying, to please his fans. Adrian Fernandez is 7 laps down. But at the front, it's still hot, and the pace car's lights are out, and we're getting ready to see if Andre Ribeiro can indeed hold on for his second ever IndyCar win.
All the cars back to Gilles de France are battling for this race at this point. Ribeiro, Unser, Pruitt, 1, 2, 3. Then Christian Fittipaldi, Rahal, Zanardi, and then Bosell. Those guys are all battling right now for the win on this race. The rest of the field is 1 lap down. Ribeiro, Honda Firestone, can he get his second ever IndyCar win? Al Unser Jr., the winningest IndyCar driver, currently active, 31 wins, looking for his 32nd.
I think this is going to be very, very tense to the flag, and we may yet see another little mistake because the pressure's really on here. Let's hope that Andre manages not to make one of those slides out of turn 4 that's been costing him time.
Pruitt is looking for his second ever IndyCar win after winning at the Oval at Michigan, the 500 last year.
And
you
Christian
mentioned it there.
has just dived there, gone for it.
Nice
quick move.
And you mentioned it there. We've seen Ribeiro get sideways 4 times during this race, but he's amazingly back up front to lead this race.
Just 4 laps to go now, and Ribeiro's just got to make sure he doesn't make that mistake 4 more times.
That was a good move by Christian Fittipaldi. There's Al Unser Jr. currently in second, trying to hold off, charging Scott Pruitt, who at the same time is trying to hold off Christian Fittipaldi and Alessandro Zanardi behind him. 3 laps to go. Andre Ribeiro and the Honda Firestone Tasman entry, looking for his second ever IndyCar win.
And that is Zanardi now up to 4th, Christian 5th.
Zanardi had a great run. I believe he's led
He's
most
popping
laps.
right back in there. He may yet have a chance to get back past Pruitt. He could well surprise them.
Pruitt, also the Firestone tyre, currently running third.
And Pruitt, of course, we remember earlier on in the show we were saying lost his 3rd place right on the line in Miami. He'll be keen to make sure that doesn't happen, just as Zanardi tries to make my point for me by trying to take that 3rd place off Pruitt there.
Zanardi in with the Honda, Pruitt with the Ford Cosworth power, the XD engine. One of the teams to have the new XD. Christian Fittipaldi right behind them, and Rahal dropped back just a little bit. There you see Gilles de France going by on that speed shot. There's Gilles de France a lap down on the rest of the field. Unser Jr. battling with Scott Pruitt. The crowd going nuts as Andre Ribeiro is going to come round and take the victory in the Rio 400. One more to go. Ribeiro.
Heart-in-mouth moment for Andre Ribeiro here. Now he's just got to be steady, steady, steady.
The noises he can hear coming from his car right now, although the crowd's incredibly loud, he's just hanging in there and probably saying to himself, not that corner again, don't make that mistake. Are we going to see a great battle for second two between Junior and Pruitt and Alessandro Zanardi? Here comes Andre Ribeiro. Can we see him getting his second IndyCar victory as he comes by? The crowd will go absolutely crazy. In fact, we can hear the crowd. Just what the millions of Brazilian fans wanted. Great for him. You saw him there waving to Emerson Fittipaldi. Emerson Fittipaldi coached him through the Indy Lights series and picked him and recommended him to the Tasman team as a driver because he'd been helping him and coaching him. So great for Fittipaldi to have Ribeiro, basically a protege of his, come through and win it. Obviously, like himself. And the battle for the second, I believe, Al Unser Jr. managed to hold off Scott Pruitt, and then in 4th was Alessandro Zanardi. But there you see Ribeiro, and I tell you, he is.
A fantastic victory for Andre Ribeiro. He celebrates by lighting up the tyres. And War, did you ever see a crowd welcome a victory quite like the Brazilians did just there. You'd have to go back to, well, I don't know, Senna winning the Brazilian Grand Prix for the first time in Sao Paulo in 91 to see something like that, or Nigel Mansell at Silverstone in 1992. Andre Ribeiro wins the inaugural Rio 400 ahead of Alonso Jr., and you have to say that at the end that Honda power certainly showed, and just look at the delight on young Ribeiro's face. Alonso Jr. was totally left behind, and he was in his own battle there with Scott Pruitt, and also Alex Zanardi making his way up there. Confirmation of the results there: Ribeiro wins from Alonso Jr., Pruitt, Zanardi, and fifth was Christian Fittipaldi. Bad luck for Robbie Gordon. Looked to me as though he was looking down in his cockpit before he went off. Possibly his gearbox wasn't working. Sixth, Bobby Rahal, then Bozell, Vassar, Moreno, De Ferran. More points for Vassar. He's been very strong so far. I just wonder what the problem was with Gordon. Very strange. Seemed like, as I say, he looked down in his cockpit and then just missed his braking point, possibly, just got on the loose stuff and went into the wall. And, well, that was the end of Robbie Gordon's race. He had a very strong run through and was lying in second place at the time. But what an eventful race we've seen. We've seen Alex Zanardi leading most laps, eventually finishing fourth, coming through very strong at the end, coming back from ninth place with 15 laps to go to finish fourth. And who knows, if he hadn't been unlucky with that fuel strategy, he may even have won it. We also saw Greg Moore lead quite a number of laps. Poor old Moore came out of turn 4 a little bit too wide up behind a back marker and just clouted the outside of the wall with his right rear tyre, and that just possibly just did enough damage to unsettle the car. Wasn't safe to race on, and that was the end of Greg Moore's spirited challenge, always in the top 3 throughout the race. And you have to say that Greg Moore is going to win a race before very long. It was his father who looked so despondent at the end, and it was in fact Paul Morgan of Ilmor, the Moore of Ilmor Engines, who build the Mercedes engines, who came down to commiserate with Greg Moore when he went out of his race. It wasn't senior Mercedes engineer, it was in fact the managing director of Ilmor. There's Alonso Jr. who comes in second place, but the whole of Brazil wants to talk to Andre Ribeiro. His second IndyCar race is a second IndyCar victory after New Hampshire last year. Both his victories coming on ovals, which is unusual for a man who was raised in karting in Brazil, Formula Fords in Brazil, and then of course came over to Great Britain and raced for Paul Stewart Racing in Formula 3. Reasonably successful, then decided to take the plunge and go over to Indy Lights and raced with the Tasman team as teammate to Steve Robertson over there. Tasman have been immensely successful, of course, seeing Brian Herter through to Indy Lights championship success. And Ribeiro making his way up through this slightly unusual pattern, but committing himself to America. And now it's all come good for him. His second win. And, well, you have to say that the Honda people will be very happy. 2 wins out of 2 so far this season, and the Firestone people will be pretty happy as well, because they've got 2 wins out of 2 as well. Ribeiro using a Lola chassis. The first victor of the championship, so of course, was Vassar using the Reynard chassis. But certainly the Fords and the Mercedes will be scratching, well, Fords particularly will be scratching their heads. Gordon was running quite strong towards the end with the Ford engine, but this XD proved problematic reliability-wise. It's a great improvement over the XB, certainly in terms of its performance, but, well, today it just left them wanting more. There's the Honda's main man just behind, the guy with the beard, forgotten his name for a moment. But he's the senior project engineer. He's the man who had to bite his bottom lip pretty hard in 1994 when they came into IndyCar racing with Bobby Rahal's team. Failed to qualify for the Indy 500. And they've certainly come on strong.
This is unbelievable. This is great. Look, the people, they are crazy. And I think I'm even more crazy than them. So this is fantastic.
When you talked about coming to Brazil and running this race, did you ever dream that you would find your way to victory lane?
Well, the first dream was to race here. And now to win is much more than a dream.
What about the emotional content? Because, you know, it's one thing to win a race the way you did last year, but now to win right here in your home country, be able to speak your Portuguese language and to wish these fans congratulations.
Well, this is fantastic. It's so good to see those people happy.
You got to be pretty happy.
This is great. This is great.
Gary?
So the Rio 400 is won by Andre Ribeiro, Alan Jr. second, Scott Pruitt, the other podium visitor, Alex Zanardi, fantastic run in fourth place, and Chris Fittipaldi from the back row to fifth place, a great run for him and for Newman Haas. Bobby Rahal, Bozell, Vassar salvaging more points. This has been the Rio 400, this has been James Allen, thanks for watching.
The IndyCar World Series was brought to you on Eurosport by Husqvarna, Forest and Garden, Bridgestone, the science of performance, and